Hi guys, welcome to Drumfield Cafe. My name is Eric Boudreau. This is the World Edition number 6 for the first season of Drumfield Cafe, and it's the last show of the season. So next show will be all the show will restart in season 2, starting in September. September 15 will be the first show of season 2. All the summer will be pre-recorded like capsules. You can watch it every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. So today is the last show we have with a super great lineup. If you're new to the channel, you can watch all the previous show on the Facebook page of Drumfield Cafe and on the YouTube page to Drumfield Cafe. We have like a pretty great lineup. I mean, a lot of good artists have passed and have chat with me, and they are amazing, like Todd Zuckerman, Rick Latham, Daru Jones. Tonight a really good lineup, so go check it out. All is on the YouTube channel or the Facebook of Drumfield Cafe. We have an Instagram, not super strong right now, but it's gonna grow up, so you're more invited to follow all those pages: Instagram, Facebook, and the YouTube channel. Just a little reminder, yeah, like I said, we'll restart the September 15, so you should be able to see all the new artists in the middle of the summer, so stay tuned. If you won't be part of the contest, because we always have like contests, like for example yesterday we had a drum book, like someone, like one of the guests, like Christian, has a drum book because he wrote a book, and he told me, yeah, I would like to have a giveaway with my book. So if you want to be aware of all those contests, you need to go on the Facebook page. All the information go through the Facebook page. We had like a drum, like a silent drum practice pad kit from Dorado Pad. We had like a samples. We have a contest for students. So just be aware. Go on the Facebook page, and you will have all the information there. So let's go with the first artist. The time will go super fast today. So we have 6 artists. So it's a pretty good lineup, but a long night. So he graduated from Berklee College in jazz composition and arranging. He won at Berklee the Buddy Rich Master Award and the Roy Haynes Award. That's pretty good. He played with Dizzy Gillespie for many years. We're going to talk about that. He's the creator and founder of the Nasyr Drum Camp. After that, he was the he won for a movie. We produced that movie called A Drummer Dream, a really good movie. He played with many great musicians like Mike Stern, Tiger Okoshi, Makoto Zone, Kenny Garrett, Oliver Jones, and many more. He's been teaching in college, university all around the province of Quebec. Let's say hi to Nasyr. Hey, how are you, Nasyr?
Comment ça va? Hello.
Pretty good. How's the quarantine for you?
Yeah, the quarantine was, I guess in the first month was kind of difficult because I couldn't go bird watching and play my drums. But yeah, I mean, it's, I guess, just like everybody else around the world, it was definitely a trying time, and it still is. But we're pulling through. Looks like mankind is generally pulling through this difficult situation. Yeah.
And you told me you when you restart practicing drums, you were doing a lot of crazy stuff and like mathematical like patterns and like weird rhythms, but that's pretty cool. So why? Is just because you have no time and you say, okay, I'm gonna go with hard stuff, or what was the purpose of that? Just to create stuff, keep your mind like working?
Well, actually, to Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, I'd like to start off by really acknowledging and thanking a man who literally changed my life.
Okay.
And of course, my father, but in drumming, it was a man called Billy Cobham. And when I heard him play with Mahavishnu and with all the recordings that he did himself, that was kind of like the beginning of the love affair with the drums. So Billy Cobham, if you're listening out there, thank you so much for the inspiration. There were many other inspirations as time went on, but the initial big bang my love for drums was when I first heard Billy Cobham play. And just check him out it's amazing what he was doing in 1971, 1972. It's a long time ago. And there's still what he was doing back then. It's still incredible in terms of the standards of today's drumming and drummers.
Totally. Totally.
So,
it's funny you mentioned Billy Cobham, because long time ago I was on tour in the Bay Area of San Francisco, and I was in Oakland, and they have the Yoshi, the jazz bar, and it was my first time in that area, like back 2003. And I arrived around that bar, but I didn't know that bar, and we just walked by, and there's an ad say tonight Billy Cobham trio, like a quintet. So it's like, okay, I was thinking it was a joke. No, we showed up, and it was Billy Cobham with his band. They're like 20% in the room, $10 the ticket. So we sat down, and great player. Yeah, it was amazing. But you just mentioned it, like at which age did you started? Like roughly like around 8 years old, 10 years old. Yeah, playing drums. I mean.
Well, my father, God bless him. My father was born in Harlem, New York. He's African American, and he came to Canada as it was jazz. I mean, if you were in a club and a restaurant, it was pretty much live music, and a lot of it was jazz. And so my father, being a musician, and when he came here, he met a nice Ukrainian girl. I think she was the coat check girl at one of the clubs. And before you know it, they're married. And then I come along after my two older siblings. And so my father, there was always, music in the house and instruments to play on. And I think I first probably started playing the drum set when I was about maybe 10 years old. And but I really got serious about playing drums after the fusion years, Return to Forever, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Weather Report. That was my main bread and butter. I wasn't too much into music where there was singers. I loved a lot of great singing artists, but when it came to drumming, I was really blown away by what was going on musically and drumming and technically and time-wise and time signatures, etc. From that music. So I would say that, a few years before 10 years old.
Okay. And you mentioned something, you have a brother too, like musician. So so that's good, because your father gave that like music love, not just to you, but to your brother too. So that's pretty nice. Yeah. It's a good opportunity. So
yeah, it was a great experience.
And something, because you're talking about your young age, I was asking you a question about, you started to tour at a very young age with great musicians. So how was it to be like wearing the pants of the drummer, like playing with, like, for example, like Dizzy Gillespie or like other guys at a very young age?
Well, I do remember that when it was official that Dizzy Gillespie called me to be his drummer, I was 25.
Okay.
I do know that for the 10 years before that, it's like, when I listened to Vinny and Dennis and Dave Weckl and a lot of the greats, when I listened to them do interviews, I feel like it's like that's almost like very similar to what I went through. And in that it's a passion, and you're listening to all these great drummers, and you just can't get enough of it. So by the time I was 25, I mean, I had just finished graduating from Berkeley, and at Berkeley, I did do a few gigs with Dizzy as a student.
Okay.
And we had a phenomenal trio. Makoto Ozone, who in my opinion is probably the greatest musician while he was at Berkeley. I mean, he was just out of this world. He was getting, so our trio was Makoto Ozone and Marshall Wood on bass, who has been working with Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett for the last few years. And so we had a great trio. We were like the Young Lions. And so we were playing all over Boston. and the guy that used to book us, Whale, Charlie Lake, he hired us to play in Cambridge, where Harvard is. And so I know that Dizzy wanted to hire Makoto right off the bat. I spent another year finishing up my studies, and then I moved to New York City on a Canada Council grant. Thank you, Canada.
Okay.
And Dizzy found out that I was living in New York, and within a few months he called me, and then I started as his drum player. By the way, Steve Bailey was the bass player in that.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like the head of the bass department right now at Berkeley. Excuse me one sec. Angelica, can you just get me a glass of water, please? Thank you. That's Angelica. Say hi, Angelica.
Hello. Full service.
Great singer. She serves great water. Oh, hold on.
Full service. That we like that. But take your time. But anyway, okay. I would just mention. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was young when I started with Dizzy. I had done other gigs younger. I played 4 years with my father every weekend in a small cafe called Cafe Mojo in Montreal, and just him and I were improvising back and forth 4 nights a week. And so when I went to Dizzy Gillespie's house for the so-called rehearsal before our first gig, my father came along also. And Dizzy said, yeah, you can come and sit in on the gig. And next thing you know, my father's sitting in on the gig. And then Dizzy Gillespie hired my father and myself to play in his band. And then we started touring all over the world. Wow. Praise the Lord.
That's a very good opportunity. I've seen a few old videos of that. I remember that was pretty cool to see those videos.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank God for YouTube. I mean, there was a time when YouTube didn't exist, and there was a lot of artists, a lot of musicians, and a lot of historical things that we humanity need to know about. So it's been. I'm glad that people filmed some of these gigs like we did, because it's like, yeah, it's true.
It's a good opportunity, and you just mentioned something back in the days when somebody was recording something, it was gold. Because you couldn't have access to that fast, Same thing as a recording studio, or you were planning to record an album with your band. That was gold. I mean, you have to go in a place. It's super expensive. Now you can do things by your own and with your computer. You know what I mean?
Speaking of gold, I want people out there in the world to know that this guy, Eric, I had him as a student in Concordia University many years ago. He was one of my finest students.
99.
When I remember, because we have all, everybody that teaches has many students, but there's some of them are, I don't want to use the word special, but what I do remember about you, Eric, there's two things: your energy and your spirit. And when we talk about gold, I got to throw this in. Because I know you've been working with the world's greatest horse show, Cavalier, and I know you remember this. I remember it was a few years ago. It was a beautiful day like today. And I was taking a drive in the middle of nowhere in the country, and my phone rings, and so I pull over on a small dirt road to answer your phone call, and I see that it's Eric. But at the same time, there were two beautiful horses that were running towards me from the other side of the street, and they ran up to the fence right next to my car. Two beautiful horses, and I'm in the middle of nowhere. And then so I pick up the phone and say, "What's up, Eric?" He says, I play with Cavalier, the horse show, and and I want to get you some tickets for you and your parents, and
it's true.
It's a great horse show. And I'm looking at these horses, and I'm saying, my God, I'm actually experiencing a miracle right here. So I know it was your energy, your spirit. And it wasn't a coincidence. So everybody out there, Eric, he's the man.
Thanks. But something I remember, my first class with you, it was amazing because you break me without breaking me, but in the good way, because you were playing your keyboard and you told me, okay, let's play some 7/4 song and 5/4 song, and It's easy, like and I was like, okay. You have to be super focused. But I remember that, and after that, that's why we became very good friends, because I consider you as a good friend, because we pass along a lot of things, and I invite you to the Capital Drum Fest, and when I was the artistic director in 2014.
Yo, Ralph Angelillo, man, it was great seeing him there. And yeah, thank you very much for inviting me for that festival. I had a good time.
Yeah.
I had a bit of a bad. It's funny, like when you watch, you could be watching like a drummer or an athlete, and you don't see that. You know, they might have a little sciatica or sore back, but I had a sore back. So it's funny, like sometimes, you know, we see artists and musicians, and it looks like, you know, it's, you know, they're having a great time up there, but sometimes we're dealing with you know, a sore ankle and a little sciatica here, but the show must go on.
Show must go on. Actually, I was rewatching your performance from that event like last week, I think, and I just realized one of your songs was one of the songs I did to the Montreal Drum Fest when I did my first time in '99.
Oh, cool.
for I was doing it for Concordia. So and I didn't remember because you were playing with tracks. But when I did it, was with the house band with Julie Lamontagne and I think it was Mathieu Cormier on the bass. So it was a good band. But like we're talking about like 21 years ago.
Yeah. One thing I got to say about composition, you know, like I love to compose. It took a while, but when I did go to Berkeley, harmony and in arranging and composition, and I still, you know, practiced a lot and played in a lot of ensembles at Berkeley and made a lot of great contacts. But that's one thing that I like to do is I like playing piano and composing and, you know, having fun on the keyboards.
Do you have a piano at your place? Like
I actually, believe it or not, Billy Strayhorn, the man who worked with Duke Ellington, Billy Strayhorn wrote a lot of great jazz compositions. Namely, one of the greatest is Lush Life. And he lived in Harlem, and my father has an aunt that Billy Strayhorn rented a room from, and Billy Strayhorn had a piano in that apartment. So my father went to get that apartment, brought it to Brooklyn in his apartment. When he moved to Canada, he moved it to his apartment. And when my father passed away, God bless you, Dad, I have Billy Strayhorn's piano in my apartment. So I do have a piano. I have some electronic keyboards that I use for sequencing and stuff, but nothing too fancy.
Yeah, but you have such a great story there, just right there with the keyboard. It's nice, a piano.
Yeah.
I love it. Actually, talking about that, you had it's because you mentioned you did arrangement and composition in Berkeley, and how that have influenced your, not just your playing as a drummer, but your personally as a musician, because you don't just play the beat, the rhythm. You were composing full orchestral stuff. So how that have increased your level of musicianship?
I think that's a great question. Generally speaking, you know, people say that music has three elements, you know, harmony, melody, and rhythm.
Yeah.
And so as a, you know, someone who'd been playing drums a long time, I had the rhythm thing down pretty good. But when I started studying harmony and melody, for me, harmony, it's like, let's say you have a tree in a picture, in a painting, and in the foreground, a tree, that's your melody. But the background could be a slum, that's your harmony, that's your chords. Is it a beautiful landscape behind that tree? Is it a stream? Is it a bird? Is it an airplane? So in melody, one of the things that I learned is this thing called reharmonization. You can take one melody and reharmonize it 25, 30 different ways. So I feel that, yes, acquiring knowledge as a musician in not just your own instrument, but in harmony and melody and arranging, it actually helps you understand in a big way, perhaps even more than 1/3, what music is. You know, like when I listen to Beethoven, or if I'm listening to some pop music or any kind of music on the radio, I'm thinking to myself, that's 1-6-2-5-1. Oh, that's a Lydian flat 7 hybrid. Oh, that's a minor 7 flat 5. or it could be a minor ninth chord. It's like when you study all these things, when you hear it, you know what it is, and then you can actually compose after a while without even the use of a keyboard, just based on your theoretical knowledge. So I think it's important for musicians, regardless of the instrument that they play, to learn about modal harmony, traditional harmony, jazz harmony. There's all kinds of harmony. There's scales in the Middle East that have 13 notes. There's 6-note scales. There's pentatonics. And then you go to Egypt, they got 24 notes in a scale. They got quarter tones. So, in our multi-whatever world, and it's always been like that, it's just that now all the different races, religions, and et cetera are all living together in the same countries. So it's, and Dizzy spoke about that too, how the universality of, and the unification of all the different styles of music coming together.
Yeah, well, it's good you mentioned that, because many people doesn't have idea, like you mentioned it about, like some culture have like more notes because they're subdivided and they have like different, and they play with those. And for us, it's not common. It was like, I don't know, this is it's a mistake. I just know I put my finger was wrong in the guitar. You know what I mean? So for them, they can play with it, and it's amazing. I have a friend. He was in the Middle East, I think it was in Dubai, and they recorded some tracks with people from there. And he told me it was the best experience ever he had, because they have a different conception of the harmony. And it's
I got to cut in 2016, the year 2016. And I didn't realize at that time, Anika, what's her name? Anika Niles? The into the fives. What's her name? Anika? She does all the quintuplets.
Yeah, Anika.
Right. I checked out some of her stuff. It's pretty amazing. In the year 2016, getting on that subject of, where you're going to find different stuff from different parts of the world, I decided to get into almost the same thing. And I realized that in the year 2016, my obsession was literally that time signature, 2016. I was messing around with 4 groups of quintuplets, or five groups of 16th notes. It was always 20 notes inside the bar line. And I started messing around with that. And I was like, and then I saw her. I was like, oh, great. At least I get a good idea of what all this stuff sounds like. But it's awesome, because now I'm messing around with time signatures. For example, I'm just going to say this real quick. It was 5 a.m. one time, and the wind and the vertical blind were creating a rhythm called da-da-da. Da-da-da. Da-da. It was like, and I said, wait, what is that? Because the wind, the vertical blind was making this rhythm. After 10 minutes of trying to figure it out, it actually was, the total was 11, but it was in a triplet feel. It wasn't like Mahavishnu, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3. This was a triplet feel. It was like 3 triplets and 2/3. So it was 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a da da da, 2 and a 3 and a da da da. So the time signature was in 11/8 or 11/16, but the feel, it wasn't duple, it was a triplet feel. So now I'm messing around. I'm doing 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. So I'm messing around with that. And lots of times now when I practice weird and odd time signatures, I don't listen to the radio, and I just put the metronome. And I use the metronome just itself for subdividing 7s, 9s, 11s, 5s, 4.5s, 5.5s, whatever. But yeah, man, it's like, and that's what I do now. I practice a lot.
But well, to follow this idea, because you just said you were like for a long time like practicing different kind of conception of rhythm. You have been a teacher for so many years in college and university and private. How that experience have been influenced you? Like, I mean, I know you are bringing a lot of ideas. I've seen all your sheets, sometimes like written and patterns. But can you say it's a mix of your student influence you and you influence your student, and the life, how you manage that with your student in general?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, teaching has been a great experience. It's what I guess what I liked the most, because at the end of, teaching is also a great way of getting a regular paycheck, because lots of times when you're touring or when you're doing gigs, weddings, bar mitzvahs, and all that stuff, it's a check here, a little bit of cash over here. But one of the things that I really, after the many years of teaching, yes, I've learned a lot from many students. And of course, there's an exchange. I pass on information. I have a lot of things, I think, as in general.
Okay.
And this I learned from my father. Life. I used to sit down in places at a park or in a mall with my dad, and he used to say, "I'm watching the greatest show on earth." And I said, "What do you mean? There's no acrobats or musicians?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "People. I watch people." And there's all kinds of people in the world. And he says, "Wow, look at that! It's amazing, the diversity of." But as far as teaching, one of probably the greatest or the funnest thing or the most amazing thing that I've learned from being a teacher, it's actually the surprises, because you never know who's going to walk into that room. I had a Chinese student, a student from Singapore. He just moved to Canada. And he didn't even know he had perfect pitch. "Hey, Edwin Ling." But this guy, I couldn't, but anything I gave him, he was able to do it. He was a double deck. He had the highest R score in the college. Anything that I gave him on the drums, no matter how complicated, he did it. And I was like, he's just like a regular guy from Singapore. And he's a genius. And now he already just did his PhD. And I've had a lot of students like that. Each one different. Mm-hmm. And it's inspiring yourself. I mean, I remember getting a letter or an email from Concordia University, something about Eric Boudreau being one of the most successful.
I received that letter.
Don't blush. One of the most Concordia students like ever.
I was right. It was I have it. It's a president of something like that from the university sent me that, and one day in random, and I was like, "Oh, thank you." Anyway, we're not there.
Cool. I mean, that's one of the great surprises. When you're a teacher. I had recently a student, Adam Pasalakwa. He was on tour with the Franklin Project or something. I forget what it's called. But he called me up, and I went to see his show. It was completely sold out, and went to hang out with him backstage. And I posted. I felt like a proud uncle. Like, yeah, that's my boy.
I see that.
Anyway, there's been like hundreds. I mean, there's tons of students that I'm very thankful for that I was able to help them out, and that's it.
Yeah, you have been very active anyway, not just teaching, but in the community of Montreal drummer for years. So a lot of people have you as an influence and as in a good way. So it's very good for you. So you have been really important in the music scene. So thank you. Hey, we only have 2 minutes left. So before we go, tell us where the people can reach you right now, because you told me you will do stuff. So please tell us where we can reach you.
Okay, so for lessons, I'm still teaching. I'm not teaching so much in university or college anymore. I'm teaching at a place called Solo Drum. So you go to solodrum.com. There I teach there. It's a great place for practicing. Bands, they have all kinds of combo ensemble rooms set up. They're set up for live. I can eventually we'll be able to do some Skype and Zoom and all that lessons. But call Alan at Solo Drum Studios, and it's a great place. Sometimes I practice there for hours, but I teach there. And so if you're interested, the other thing I'd like to just mention, I wanted to mention, like to give respect to Ralph Angelillo, great impresario drummer, who has had the Montreal Drum Fest for many years. The other thing is I'm actually at a great studio from a great artist, blues artist. I feel that he's Canada's top #1 blues artist. His name is Derek Falls. Yep. And so we're doing this interview from his studio called
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah. There's, let's see who else. The girl that just gave me I think there's a link to her, Angelica. She's a great singer.
We have 30 seconds. So 30 seconds.
What else is there? So Eric, by the way, everybody, this is the man, by the way. He's great. Yeah.
But so, and if people wants to get in touch with you for see what you are doing, you have a Facebook. So
Yeah, I think we hooked it up. Do you see it there, or is it? I'm on Facebook, Nasyr Abdul AL-Khabbyr. I have a website, nasyr.ca, and that's ran by my manager, Chantal Vizina. She was the one that helped run Nasyrium Drum Camp with all the greats. So, hey, Chantal. Yeah, so for those links, I think we're going to get some links.
Anyway, you can always ask Derek to help you to put them in the chat. We need to go next year. So
Okay,
thank you for your time. I need to cut you, sorry, because I have a lot of guesses, 5 others to come.
Cool. So I just bought these today, and because there's so much light emanating from your soul, I have to kind of like dim it down.
It's okay. It fit well. And
so thank you.
Stay safe. Take it easy. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, God bless.
Thanks for coming. Bye-bye. Nice glasses. Well, so just a reminder before we go to the second guest, please follow the Drumfield Cafe on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you want to have all the information about the artists come in and all, the best way to get them, get those information is through the Facebook for now. Starting in September will be something else. Today is the last edition of Drumfield Cafe Season 1. We already have done 19 show. So if you're new or you never heard about, go on the YouTube channel of Drumfield Cafe, like it and follow it. You can rewatch all the shows there, or you can do it by Facebook too. Well, I don't have all the shows on the Facebook. We have like maybe mid-season on Facebook, but you can rewatch. And if you didn't know, well, we have Daru Jones, Rick Latham, Todd Zuckerman, and many other great drummers. So I really suggest you to go check that out. Just to let you know, like the first show of season 2 will restart September 15. We're gonna have a very cool contest. I won't tell not right now, but be aware if you're on the Facebook, there's a contest for win a good prize for the first show September 15. And this summer it's capsules. We're gonna have 10 pre-recorded capsules from a drummer, and they're gonna be launched every Tuesday. Not the Wednesday. The Wednesday are the World Edition, but it's going to be the Tuesday all summer long at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So let's go with the second guest. I met him a few years ago, but I knew him for a long time by names. He's originally from Canada, but now he lives in the US in Salt Lake City. He worked with famous people, and he did some famous tracks for video games. That's why I wanted to have him here. I want to talk about that. He did like Twisted Metal, Dance Revolution, Downhill Domination, Rally Sport Challenge, like SPN, FIFA World Cup Soccer, like many others, like more than 60 games. So it's pretty huge. I also he do like some tribute, some kind of tribute to Neil Peart. Very cool. We're going to talk about that too. And he's under endorsee DW Remote Paiste. So let's say hi to my friend Joel Stevenett. How are you doing, my friend?
How you doing, Eric?
Pretty good. So you were telling me you're in Southern California right now.
Yeah, I'm in Orange County, California. Just here hanging with the family, visiting family, and enjoying this amazing sunshine.
Nice. Yeah. That's well said. I was making some research on you last week, and I was really impressed. For real, I knew you did a lot of video game, and I knew that from scratch because you told me you did some stuff at PASIC and stuff like that. But I didn't know you did 60 games, around 60 or maybe more. You will tell me.
It's probably a little over 60, but yeah, it's been quite a few years doing video games, and my gosh. I was living in Nashville, Tennessee, and in between tours, or if I had a few days off, I would fly back to Salt Lake City. And my friend Chuck Myers, who's a producer and the guy that would hire me to play drums on these games, would just be like, "Hey, man, are you available this weekend?" I'm like, "Dude, let's do it." So, my gosh, it's like one turned into two, and it just kept going and going. And so we started doing stuff for, my gosh, some of the first original games for PlayStation.
Whoa, okay.
And then it went into Xbox, and then it went into more PlayStation for PSP, for the PlayStation, the little handheld guy. Yeah. And then also into Nintendo Wii as well.
Wow. Because this is funny because now a lot of those tracks are like pre-recorded drums or like simple samples, you know, like someone will do.
Yes.
But you did the original tracks, so they were bringing you in a studio and you were tracking with only the music, or you were able sometimes to see some action. How that was working, like, because I'm curious.
Yeah, usually what it was is that the company, whoever was designing the game, would get us video of the gameplay with time code on it.
Okay.
And then we would look at that, and then Chuck would just say, "Hey, Joel, what would you do here? What would you do here?" Or they would say, "Hey, we need," for example, like on Rally, no, what was it? No, it was Twisted Metal Head On, one of the last Twisted Metals.
Okay.
They said, "Hey, we need some drums to match the cars going up through the Antarctic and spitting out rocks and ice. And what would you play to that?" And I'm like, well, so we started putting up different drums, and I had a bunch of octobons and a bunch of different cymbals that we would, do stacks on, and splashes and tom fills and gong drums, and it was a beautiful thing, because like anything and everything would go, and I would have just a room filled with percussion and all sorts of oh my gosh, ethnic percussion and drums and cymbals, and it's just amazing stuff.
It's pretty nice. But if we go back forward a bit, why you choose the drum? Why you didn't be a flute player,
dude? There are times where I'm loading in or loading out where I wish I played the flute or the bass, or because it's the drumming, like the aspect of playing is amazing, but the logistics can sometimes be a little brutal, especially when you're traveling and doing one-offs and backline. But born and raised in Alberta, Canada, and
it's very warm there. Known to be it's known to be warm and 100 degrees. December, stuff like that,
so warm that you want to put mittens and earmuffs on and a scarf. But I think I was about 3 years old, and I would just start pulling pots and pans out of my mom's kitchen cabinets in the kitchen. And I would set them up from smallest to largest. And her pots and pans had these lids on them, and you turn them upside down, and they had like these little steam release valves.
Yes.
And when you turn the lid upside down and you hit them, they'd go bzzz. And so I would set those up at cymbals. And again, I didn't know cymbals from drums. I just knew it was a lot of fun. And I would put on albums on my mom and dad's big console record player, from Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass and the Beatles and Gordon Lightfoot and Boss Skaggs, and that's all I've ever done. I mean, that's just been my thing, just drumming like so many others. It's just like, it was what I was born to do.
And you did like high school, college, and in music, like all the steps. So where did you study, in Alberta, or you were
So born and raised in Alberta, and then when I was around 10 years old, mom and dad moved the whole family down to Utah, just outside of Salt Lake City.
Yep.
And so I finished school there, was in high school jazz band, and did some different performing show bands in college, and then once I was done with that, I moved to Nashville in 1993, I think it was, 93, something like that. Okay. And spent about 11, 12 years in Nashville.
Oh yeah, well, it's a great scene, great place for music. I really love Nashville. It's a great city. But Salt Lake City, I actually, it's funny because we met there, you and me, and I invite you to see one of my shows during I was on tour, and it's funny because Salt Lake City has great musician. I mean, and it's a great city with the mountain and all. It's crazy. But I remember when I see you, I met you I knew you. We were friends on Facebook, but we never met. And I was in a bar with a part of the band on tour
at the Cliff House.
At Cliff House, and I'm like, I know that guy, and I'm like, and I checked out. Hey, is Joel? I know him. So we start talking, and you were sounding great, like always. But it was just cool. You never know who you will meet. Someone, it's a hang. Like you told me, the story you just told me before. With Galad, like you told me, you met that guy at Zildjian party.
Shane Galass.
Shane Galass. Sorry.
Yeah, he's from also from the same town that I was born and raised in Innisfail, Alberta, Canada. And Shane is just a
Great music.
phenomenal drummer and a human being. And I think I think he lives down here in LA.
Okay, I saw him once in the Montreal Drum Fest, like back in the days, but it was great player.
Yeah.
But well, so can continue in that zone, like so. When you finish, you start playing with bands, like cover bands, or you were like more into will do a cover, like a original music band kind of thing. What was your starting point when you wanted to make it happen? You know.
I think growing up it was just a lot of just listening to albums and albums and more albums. And you know, I grew up listening to a lot of Boss Skaggs. And when I say Boss Skaggs, like the early stuff
Yep.
with George Raines on drums and
Yep.
just an amazing group. And then it was later on that I remember getting the album for Christmas when I was like 9 years old, Down Two Then Left. And I think Jeff Beccaro was on there and some of the Toto guys, which
Great
amazing, and
musician.
just completely inspiring. And a lot of Earth, Wind and Fire. Um, oh my gosh, Billy Cobham, and later on Chick Corea, and a lot of Alan Holdsworth, and then you know, Rush.
Yeah, well,
And it was Rush when I was like 14 years old. You know, I really started listening to a lot of that stuff.
That was a great influence for you, like because we will talk about that in a few minutes. But
okay.
Who was your top 3 biggest influence as a drummer? Let's say just random.
I would say George Raines from Boss Skaggs. I would say Chad Wackerman.
Yep,
and because you know Chad, I remember back in the day, I was listening to a lot of Holds. Oh, you know, I got to say Gary Husband as well. There's probably 3 or 4.
Amazing drummer.
But yeah, so George Raines, Chad, Gary Husband, Neil Peart, of course. Boy, there's just so many. I mean,
so many.
I mean, you've got Vinny and Dave Weckl and J.R. Robinson and you know, and I remember when I first moved to Utah. I mean, I was like 11 or 12, and I remember playing over and over the Rock With You album, the Michael Jackson album. Back then I had no idea who J.R. Robinson was, but I knew that the feel, the sounds, the vibe, and the stuff that he was playing was just
wow,
amazing and just inspiring, and it just, you know, it resonated, you know.
It's hard to do and to be a good studio drummer. I mean, to be like to put the right thing at the right place, working with a producer, keep your little touch as the musician, and do the right thing and play for the music and the song. It's a super hard work. Some musicians are only studio drummer, you know what I mean? Some other can do both, and some are only stage drummer. And some band, they have their drummer on live, but they hire people to do the recording. Sorry for say that, but it's the reality.
No, that's true. And you know, in fact, to your point, I experienced that in Nashville.
Okay.
I would be playing with different country artists and going out on the road and touring, and the live band would know the new songs or the demos inside and out. But you know, the producer would go into the studio with the artist and use his handful of guys, even though the live band knew that stuff inside and out. And sometimes, you know, it works out pretty good. But there's something about having a live band and capturing that energy and that spirit and that spark that band is giving to the artist every night on the road and on the stage, you know. But you know, it is what it is, and you know, you kind of get a mixture of both, doing live and studio.
I saw you do like recording a lot of album and like around town, and sometimes you're flying. Is that something you like to do? Do you like to do both, or you're more like one to the other in general?
Oh man, you know, I absolutely love playing live, and I love traveling, and I just love everything about it. But there's also something really special about recording in the studio, and you know, just that in-ear mix in the studio and having that creativity, or just playing for the song, and you know, and not only that, there's a tremendous amount of diversity that happens when I'm at home and I get, you know, I get asked to play on a video game, or I get asked to play on the World Cup soccer theme song or the NBA, or I'm not name dropping. I'm just saying it's just a lot of diversity, from Oprah Winfrey to Judge Judy and all these different theme songs and National Geographic. And I remember, oh, and I, you know, and also playing on a lot of library music. And what that means is I would do a lot of recording for Warner Chappell Publishing, and they would use this music for commercials, car commercials, you know, beverage commercials, whatever it is. And I remember one night I got home late and I was flipping through the channels, and I'm like, man,
that's my track.
I was like, that Tom Phil sounds really familiar. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a track I played on last month, and it was for Match.com. So yeah.
This is funny. I had that experience a few times walking in the street, going in the shopping mall, and there's always a like songs playing or an elevator. And when I'm like, I know that track. Whoa, that's my track. It was a sample of it, but I knew the way I was playing. The same. I'm sure it was the same for you. You know, you can really notice that little crispy of your playing.
You kind of know your sound and your vibe, but you know that's the beauty of music, where it's like, you know, every day is a new day, and you never know what kind of stuff you're going to be playing. And a lot of times when I get called for a session, they'll just tell me what the vibe is and kind of what type of drum sound they're going for. And then I show up, and, you know, by the time I get going, they're like, oh, this is for, you know, the NBA, or this is for, you know, Acura car commercial or whatever. And so, you know,
will adapt. You will adapt.
Yeah, you just adapt, and you just go for it, and you just make it happen.
It's amazing. Well, talking about recording, now it's time. You did a good tribute to Neil Peart, because the first time I've seen it, you did the song like at your. What I like is you did it in your way, and with it's the lights, the quality, the grain of the camera, the overall we know it's Neil Peart, but we know it's you. You know what I mean? It's not like a copycat of what it is. You know, you really did a good job. Why you did that? It started one day. It's like, I will try that. You know, why?
Well, what it was, a few years ago, I thought, you know, it might be kind of fun to put a video together and kind of show a day in the life of what I do. And then I started thinking a little bit more about it. I'm like, yeah, but, you know, would people really be interested in that, you know? And then I thought, you know, it might be kind of cool to do a video, a tribute to someone that really inspired me. And so my friend, Joel Pack, he's the owner of Rigby Road Studios in Salt Lake City. I talked to him about it, and I said, you know, I'm thinking about doing this tribute to Neil Peart. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll just do one song. But I was like, there's so many amazing, amazing songs in that catalog.
Where do I start?
Right, where does it start? And so I thought, you know what? I'll start choosing songs. So I started choosing songs, and next thing you know, I had like 26 songs.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to dissect them. I'm just going to take
parts
of each song. And Joel Pack had helped me put the medley together. And by the time we were done with the medley, we kind of went, you know, from the newest and then ended with some of the oldest stuff in the catalog. And next thing we knew, it was like 24, 25 minutes long. And I'm like, this is crazy. But then I thought, you know what? Why not? And so we put it together, put a click track on it so I could have like nice, flow, smooth transitions from song to song, whether it was sped up or slowed down. And I listened to that for about 2 weeks, just over and over and over again, because I thought, I don't want to look at charts. I don't want to look at, you know, anything to kind of to distract me from the performance of doing this medley. And so I just memorized it. And then once I actually got to sit down behind the drums and start practicing it, I was like, what have I done? This, like seriously, I was like, this is crazy.
It's hard.
Because here's the thing. I love Rush, and I know there's a lot of other guys out there that, you know, are that
big
love
fan.
it.
They're like Star Wars,
even more so than I do. And I knew that if I put it out there, people, you know, most people would say, "Oh, that's great," and a lot of people would pick it apart. So
Yeah.
So I felt like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And so I just practiced and practiced, and then went into the studio and played it twice all the way through. And the second take is what you see.
Wow. Well, I really dig it. I really like it. I watch it like a few times, like the video to really. And what I really liked is the tone, not like the tone of
Oh,
your
thank
playing,
you.
but in the tone of what like the production, like the
Yeah.
recording. So the mix of your playing and the recording is very good tone. After we'll finish the chat, like in about 10 minutes, I really want you put in the chat the video link of your video that people can watch it, because
Oh,
some people,
great.
they are watching but they have no idea what we're talking about, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So so that you can check it out. And this is important because you have something cool, you have a good signature tone, and it's not everybody they have that signature. So you can be the best drummer in the world, but you don't have your own signature. So you have your own. So this is pretty cool. That's why you said you have very different influences, from Neil Peart to a funky guy to, you know,
Yeah.
it's not
All
just
of it.
like a line, it's like spread out, you know.
Well, and another gentleman that comes to mind that was a huge influence is Simon Phillips. And Simon,
Simon.
to me, he gets some of the best sounding drum tones,
It's
out of his kit and his head combination and the microphones that he uses. And I just absolutely love the way that he plays. He's a right-handed guy, but he plays left-hand lead, and just the ghost notes with the right hand. Just such a
clean.
beautiful player. And Eric, you're I'm sure you're a lot like this, where it's like you like this drummer, you like that drummer, and Greg Bissonette said it
Great.
great, where it's like good composers borrow, great composers steal. So we all take little nuggets of stuff that resonates with us, and we incorporate them into our playing. So like stuff with Neil, stuff with George Rain, stuff with Jeff Beccaro, Simon Phillips.
It's until you see Greg Bissonette, because it was my first drum clinic, like real drum clinic I've seen as a major artist in my life. I don't remember. I think I was 16. I've seen on TV or video, like DVD, VHS, whatever tape we had at that time. But in person, I think I was 16, and it was pretty interesting. Just three, four, five first song. I don't remember. It was playing only backbeat song he recorded for like Celine Dion or whatever. Pop.
Yeah.
Man, it all was there. And Simon Pitt, I'm a big fan of Hiromi, the piano player, the Japanese player.
Oh, yeah, dude, she's incredible.
Well, but this is the thing. I see her like playing with Dave DiCenzo was on drum. I seen her with
Oh, really?
Martin Valiora, but I've seen Dave DiCenzo was at the Yoshi in San Francisco in the Bay Area, like a few years ago.
Dave is amazing, man.
Thank you. But Simon, when I saw him 2-3 times with her. The first time was in Toronto. I was on tour there, and happening, I was, when on tour, you never have breaks. And one night I was off, and it was the show. So I showed up, and they were only doing the opening for a band. I don't remember. It was
oh, really?
Yeah, they were playing for another band, very good band, but I don't remember the name. They played 45 minutes or 50 minutes, but he has his full set, not just like so good, so balanced. I don't have words for. And I was like almost first row. I was very close. There's no time you're like, it's too loud, or super. Anyway, we could talk about that guy. I really is a big influence for me. Anyway, so continuing with that, because we have like around 5 minutes, my friend. It's so fast.
Okay.
What are your coming project like in the next? Of course, COVID changed stuff, but what are the one you can make it?
So right now I'm just recording tracks from the house. I've set up basically a studio at the house where I'm able to record there, because a lot of things have changed since March. And so as things kind of open up, I'll continue to do recording and albums and things like that. One thing that I've really been enjoying, there's a guitar player by the name of Steve Stein.
Okay.
And Steve Stein does online lessons on YouTube, and I think he's got, pretty close to 500,000 subscribers. And
Wow.
So through Garrison at DW, a mutual friend of ours, Garrison had introduced me to Steve Stein, and we've just been doing some covers and throwing them up on social media. So we did a Black Sabbath cover
I
of
saw
Heaven and Hell, and which that was wonderful. And then we've got another one coming out, Still of the Night by Whitesnake.
Okay.
And then we've got two more coming out. I think it's an Iron Maiden song and a Judas Priest song. So I've been having a lot of fun doing that kind of stuff since, you know, the quarantine and everything else. And but as far as that goes, I'm actually going to be working. I guess, yeah, I'll say this. A lot of people have asked me, Joel, why didn't you do this song, this Rush song, or that Rush song, or this Rush song? So I've actually put together another 24-minute part 2 Rush medley that I'm going to be putting out probably in the next couple of months.
So when it will be ready, please send me the link. I will post it on the Facebook page of Drumfield Cafe. Yep.
Awesome.
That's the thing. And you mentioned, I want to mention that you played, you told me you were one of the first band in the nation to play a show with 5,000 people, something like that. You played recently a show.
Yeah, just Saturday.
Wow.
With a country artist from Nashville by the name of Colin Ray. I got the call to play drums for this show, and I was like, wait, they're doing concerts already? And there's an area in southern Utah that it was green lighted where they could have mass gatherings. And so we did this country show out in Cedar City, Utah, and had about 5,000 people show up from Oregon, California, Nevada, obviously Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, and Arizona. And Guy Fieri, the guy from Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, he was there and introduced Colin, and we had the best time. And, you know, people were cool. Some people were wearing masks. There was, you know, people were being respectful of the social distancing. But, man, it was an absolute party. And, yeah, I think it was the first concert in the nation since everything was kind of shut down back in March, you know. But it seems like it's kind of, you know, slightly opening up. But I tell you, people want to get back together. And obviously, you know, we need to do it in a way that's, you know, right and healthy for everybody. But it was, I tell you, it was a rocking good time. So this just happened a few days ago.
Because the people are really craving for show, to go outside, have a performance in their face, and like enjoying music. The problem is not what it's to prepare to all that things, you know, because if you cancel tours, to put back together tickets, promotion, like preparing, like renting all the stuff, it doesn't take 1 week. It can take months. So some show will restart for sure in September and maybe in August. But I don't think before 2021 all will be restart at 100%. I mean, it's sad because I'm in that too, you know. But I think we'll see some stuff. But to be back, I think will be more 2021. Well,
I get that feeling too, because I'm friends with a lot of guys still back in Nashville, and you know, they're sitting at home. All their tours were canceled, and also a lot of sound companies. I mean, everybody's just waiting for all this stuff to lift and everybody to get healthy again and to make some stuff happen.
Yeah,
so you know.
So let's cross finger. All's gonna be fine.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, before we go, you have 2 minutes. Tell us where the people can contact you for maybe teaching, recording, or your videos. Where they can catch you.
So I have a YouTube channel, Joel Stevenett, JoelStevenett. You can also follow me on Instagram at Joel Stevenett. You can follow me on Facebook at Joel Stevenett or Facebook.com/drummer to the stars.
Oh,
so you got that. And then, you know, I have been doing some virtual teaching on Zoom and Skype. So, you know, hey, if you guys want to get together and pick my brain about what I do and how I do it, then, you know, reach out and I'd be happy to, you know, be accommodating.
Cool. Hey, man, it was a blessed and a very cool moment to have with you. I'm very happy. We need to hang, man. Next time I will try to go in Salt Lake City again. It's just because usually I go West Coast, East Coast, but in the middle, it's very rare I have to go there. You know what I mean? But I would like to go around back around there.
Well, anytime, dude, you're more than welcome, and it would be just a pleasure to hang out with you. And just as a side note, I just want to thank DW,
Yep.
some of my endorsers,
Mm-hmm.
DW Garrison and John Good and everybody over there, Peisty, Kelly Peisty and Eric and Javier and April and Julie and Chad. And obviously we've got Remo Drumheads and Angie and Chris Hart and all those wonderful people over there, and Tina Rodriguez. Mike Berg at Humesenberg, Joe Testa and Ben Davies at Vic Firth. Hang on.
You know, I realize we have the same sponsor except Humenberg, but I don't have endorsement with cases. But I'm saying we have exactly the same endorsement. It's funny.
Yeah, Mike's amazing. Yeah, Mike Berg's the best. He's making incredible cases.
Yeah,
Ryan Smith at Shore Microphones. Dill Davies at Porter and Davies, which is great stuff. And then obviously, you know, my Salt Lake City based team, Sean Chase and the crew at Salt City Drums.
Yeah, actually, it's fun you mentioned that. I wanted to say that in the area of Salt Lake City, please encourage your go see your music store.
Yes.
Everybody you're listening around, please go. And if you had that money and you were planning to get some stuff, please help them, because it's not an easy moment. And sometime we're planning to do it. Now all is reopening. So please help them, because they're working very hard for everybody. And I always mention local music store are the best, because they will give you good service. If you have a problem, they will contact the companies, and this store is a great store in Salt Lake City. It's a very.
And let me tell you something. Sean Chase, the owner of Salt City, and all the guys there, those guys are amazing, and you know, they really have your back, and they really care about drummers and the local community, and so, you know, with all this stuff that's happening, I mean, they've, you know, had to sell most of the stuff online or do curbside service, but we're hoping that everything can get back to normal, and everybody can start visiting their local drum shops and keep rocking and rolling.
So, hey, thanks, man. I wish you some good vacation with your family. And
thank you, Eric.
Touch, my friend.
You're wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care, brother. See you, buddy. Bye-bye.
So the time flies is always like that. Well, this at one point, if you have like so you were thinking to buy something, you're planning to do like some investment in your drums, whatever, go see your local store, whatever you are in the world, whatever you are watching, because they are very important in the economy. And Amazon is cool, but the local store you will have way more support. They will give you good. Now the prices are almost the same, so usually it's fun to have a good community. And yeah, just help your local industry. Just a few reminder, if you don't remember, if you never done that before, please subscribe YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. They're the most important platform for us right now. But the number one is Facebook. We have a lot of contests right now. Since we started the channels like 4 or 5 months ago, we already have had like, I think 5 or 6 contests. We had like a cymbal, a drum pad, custom drum beaters. Yesterday was a drum book. And starting in September, the first show, September 15, we're going to have a very cool and big prize to give away. So just you're going to get those information on the Facebook channel of Drumfield Cafe. This summer, today is the last show, and is a World Edition number 6. So starting not tomorrow, in 2 weeks, we're gonna have capsules pre-recorded of very good artists. They're gonna talk about a topic they wanted. It's a kind of tryout moment. So every Tuesday we're gonna launch at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're gonna launch a capsule from 15 minutes to 60 minutes. So you're more welcome to watch them all. And the first show, like I said, is the 15th of September. Actually, the lineup is almost booked until mid-February. So imagine we have a lineup of people they want to be on the show, but we're gonna shut the show. Instead to be like 6 people like today, it's gonna be 2 or 3 for the World Edition and 2 for the French version. And if you speak Spanish, we're gonna have like some good stuff for you guys too. And the page will be always translated in French, English, and Spanish at the beginning. So for the Artist of the Month starting in September. So let's go with the next guest. He started a school in 1972 as drum workshop. He developed a lot of nice product everybody are using right now. He also have a cool channel called Drum Channel, and it's one of the best platform you can get information about drum. He's a passionate guy about drums, drummer. I talk with him a lot of time about that, and you can see he really dig the drumming. So let's welcome Don Lombardi. How are you doing?
Hello, thank you very much. This is not the French or the Spanish version, I hope, right?
Well, you can try in Spanish if you want. No, actually, no. No.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Eric. I haven't seen you in a long time. Last time I saw you, I was interviewing you.
It's true. It was December 2017.
Yeah.
The time goes so fast. Thank you for accepting to be on the channel. I wanted to have different person for the last show, like person like drummer, some people like involved in the industry, and I wanted you be there for we can talk about like how you became with this idea to like I don't know like 40 years ago, something like that. So so thank you for being there.
Yeah, that's true. We actually had a group of people out who had been playing for 40 plus years. So that was quite and we ended up, I was thinking we would get probably 15 or 30 people, ended up with 60. So time does go by and fly. So that's something I think we have on our YouTube channel now too. But it, it all started, I think, like every drummer's career, just something happened and it brought you towards wanting to be, a drummer. For me, it was watching. When I was 9 years old, I remember watching a television show with my dad. I don't know what it was, Show of Shows or one of those. It was a musical show at the beginning of television almost, back in the early 50s. And it opened up with a drummer playing, and I wanted to do that. I thought, I don't know, as you interview drummers, I think more than other instruments, I don't know that cellists or oboists have that moment where like, I want to play cello. I think it just kind of comes because they started playing in school and they love music. But drummers, I think, are very much drawn to that instrument. So that was kind of the first inspiration. Of course, I didn't do anything right away other than start taking private lessons. And then I was fortunate to study with very good teachers when I was 16, 17, Nick Ciroli, and then 21, 22, 23, 24 for about 5 years with Freddie Gruber.
Okay, Freddie Gruber. Wow. Okay.
Then it was a matter of just kind of having a couple of inventions, wanting to stay in town, not being a guy that was able to go out and wanted to travel. So I just fell into the opportunity of making drums when one of my students was the owner of the Camp Go Drum Company, which was the original drum with the round lug. So I thought it would be a hobby at that time. I figured I would do it sideline and I would continue to be a professional drummer. But after 5 or 6 years, there's only 24 hours in a day, so you can't do more than that.
You can't do more than that. It's true, and it's funny because you started as a drum school called Drum Workshop, and after that,
I started actually before that. I again had a very good teacher when I was 14, 15, and then studied with Nick Ciroli when I was 16, 17. I started teaching when I was 16. I actually started giving lessons at 16 at the drum store, Baxter Northrop in the Valley, that I was taking lessons at when I was 9 and 10. So I'd always pursued a career. When my son was born in 1969, who I'm blessed now to be the CEO of DW Drums, so it allows me to keep doing some of the fun stuff I want to do in education. But having the opportunity to teach and still play at clubs, and in those days there was so much music going on. Everything was live in town. You could work 7 days, 2 afternoons, teach 40, 50 students a week and make a very good living, which I was fortunate to do for about 20 years. And then I just had to eventually say, I'm going to give this manufacturing thing a shot.
This is funny you mentioned that because like right now we're in COVID and people are so creative. They make show online. They don't make show in person to person. We never thought that would happen in the future. Back 40 years old, like 40 back, you would say never happened, but now it's happening. A lot of my friends, they're doing live shows. and they make money. People like contribute, they have donation, and it's completely different like things. But I mean, it's interesting where you came from and where we are right now in a special situation.
That's where the idea came to me. It was kind of a family joke for many years. I kept saying I wanted to get back and do more education. And as a manufacturing company, we always, pushed education. But to have an educational side that would be completely separate from DW, so it doesn't have anything to do with product you endorse. It's all about education. Was the inception of starting Drum Channel. Was the idea of doing it online. The drums being such a physical instrument. I'm totally a proponent of private instruction. If you can get mentored by a private instructor, the building of Drum Channel was to have that be, an adjunct to your private instruction. So the private instructor, all the years I was teaching, I would have loved to have been able to give him something online to study when he went home. I could, in later years, get him to buy a Steve Gadd DVD or give him something to go home and watch and hope he would catch up on it. But the ability now to take advantage of all the greatest drummers around the world and put courses together that would teach them how to play the drums. You don't need a lesson every day. You just need the right lessons with the right people.
It's so true. Well, I think Drum Channel for me is like a Bible, because you have so many information that people can go there. When you're a member, for example, you give away like a 30 days, like for the beginning of the COVID, and I was telling the people, go there because it's very important. And yesterday we were talking about prices for books, and some people said, well, it's expensive. But if you make that math at the end, it's so much information. It's like to go to college or university. If you take all the videos and you're learning all those, it's way cheaper than to go to bachelor degree or whatever, if you think about what is a subscription. So that's why for me it's a very good place to get information.
The artists we have on, most of them charge much more for a 1-hour private lesson than they do for a whole year of getting everybody. So it's, and they want to spread the word too. I think drummers want to share more than anybody, because the nature of the instrument is you're never done learning. You can technically become really good at it and get a lot of independence, but there's so many different genres that everybody wants to show everybody else. It was fun at the beginning of Drum Channel when I'd have guys get together. Remember the first time Neil Peart and Alex Acuna were out there, and Terry, I had them out there to do specific things with them and couldn't find them. And here they're in Terry's little room, and they're just teaching each other what they're doing. They was excited to learn from each other as I would have been to go in and ask them how to do something, or a student would, So it's, and that sharing those moments is kind of what has got us into doing more of the entertainment side of the shows, which is where people do interviews and talk. But I found out, and that's why private instruction is so important. You can often learn more by listening to somebody's life experience than him showing you what he's doing. It's a whole different world.
I was I had a few lessons with great drummer names in the industry. I was paying them, and they were like, okay, what do you want to see? I don't know. I just want to chat with you. I want you to tell me how you make it, what are your tricks? Tell me about stories, because it made me grow. It's like, you don't want we do parallel? No, I will practice those things in my studio. You know what I mean? Sometimes of course I had like real lessons, but sometimes I wanted to have an experience of a professional musician when I was a green drummer, and Drumfield Cafe, it's something we wanted to push. That one of the goals for us is like education and like sharing experiences, and that's why you're here, because it's very good. I like it to hear stuff like that about experience, like communication, like Neil Peart, like they were like sharing information between them, and it's not something you will see maybe in drum event. They will do that in the green room, you know what I mean, but they won't do that in camera. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, growing up, I would have to go, hopefully get invited backstage because I knew a friend or a guy in the band, and just maybe spend 10-15 minutes with one of these guys during their break, just to kind of ask them some questions and see what's going on, much less have the opportunity to really hear them talking to each other, just like you're kind of a fly on the wall hanging out with them. And I remember when I interviewed you, we talked a lot about the playing in a production as you're traveling. Yep. And that was very insightful also. As a different, your life on the stage is quite unique, by the way.
It's like a recording studio on stage.
Yeah. Well, and I guess you better describe that a little better. It's not quite on stage. It's up.
Well, it's in
on
the
the fifth floor.
yeah, exactly. It's funny because we had a production, like a South Korean production, on site like long time ago. Actually, it was in Denver. They wanted to record a IMAX movie, but they put like those camera, huge camera, and they're like, "Do you think we can remove the stairs?" I'm like, "Man, that's 23 feet. I will put a ladder." No joking. It's high. I mean, when you're in the dark and you go up that thing in the studio, we had some kind of issues, but was pretty fun. I watched the video, and it was a great result. It was top quality IMAX. So imagine. Anyway, I want we talk about your inspiration, because now you said you started very young kid watching TV, like black and white, but who are the like five? I know you like Buddy Rich, but who are the other guys you really like as drummer? They inspire you as a drummer and as a person, for example.
Well, it was an interesting time to grow up as an aspiring drummer. If you take a look at the instrument and the evolution of the instrument, I always loved jazz, playing jazz. I didn't make that much of a living playing jazz because there wasn't any places where you could go out and play in jazz clubs. I did for several years, but I played a lot of rock, played a lot of show bands. If you were to take a look at the instrument itself, it kind of evolved into the bebop era as we were in the 50s and the 60s. 1960, I was 15 years old. That's when I first heard Kind of Blue, Miles Davis, the famous song with Jimmy Cobb.
Okay.
It's a drummer everybody should listen to, along with Philly Joe Jones. It covers kind of that era, that style of music, which involved improvisation, which is something that young drummers really have to learn also. And then Elvin Jones, of course. All drummers my age at that point, that were 16 or 17. The Jimmy Chapin was a book that everybody practiced, Advanced Techniques for the Modern Drummer. I figured I had that down, almost upside down and backwards, and I was feeling pretty good about myself until you hear Elvin Jones, and then you realize
it's like, whoa.
Every drummer in the world is thinking he's starting all over again. So I always said, if you were to take four corners of the world and put Buddy Rich in one corner in terms of the style and what he brought to the drum set, keeping in mind if you took Buddy Rich's technique away, we would still be talking about him as a great big band drummer. So and he used his technique in a way in which it didn't get in the way, but the intensity and the musicianship and the way he placed the time was, very, very unique. Plus his technique on top of that, which, and that was my association with Freddie Gruber. I think Freddie was the only person I've ever met in my life who had a sense of knowing what Buddy was actually doing technically, which is another subject I'll get to before we finish, maybe, because I'm putting together a course of the way Freddie Gruber broke up Buddy Rich's technique. But if you were to take Buddy Rich and put him at one corner, Ringo at another corner, now you're thinking of, two completely different styles of drummers, technically, from one end to the other. Yet they had a lot in common if you think about musicality. And I loved, Elvin Jones, so he would be one area. And a drummer that a lot of young drummers might not know about is Mel Lewis. And it's Mel Lewis was a big band drummer who had a certain feel and a certain approach towards playing a song. So I'm not thinking about these guys so much as what you would look at them if you were just to go and hear them play as a drummer, but the areas of music that they covered in their approach towards time feel, if you will. Of course, within that realm is Tony Williams, all these great drummers that came out of that era of drumming, if you will. Danny Seraphine later, Bonham. I mean, we all listened to those great bands of in the 70s and tried to cop as much as what they were doing. But for young drummers to go back and listen to the heritage is really, really important. And that's actually, there's an area we have on Drum Channel called Historical Shows, and that's where we try and interview a lot of these people who tell a lot of these great stories. And you even go back into the 40s and 50s, the music might not be your kind of music, but just listen to the drum track and what the drummer's doing. And there's some secrets there as to why, I always say Chad Smith auditioned probably with 40 drummers to get the Chili Peppers gig. And as he would say, they all played pretty much the same beat, but there was something really special about what he brought to that beat. And that's the secret, really. That's the how, what, and the why of playing we always talk about. It's learn how to play, you learn what to play, and then why you do it that way is what separates you from somebody else. You know this because you're a great musician.
Yeah, you mentioned something very good about like back in the days and the watch of the drummer from the 40s, 50s, 60s. Whatever style you play in the world, I think even if you're a metal, a punk drummer, Latino, whatever you play, don't be only like a one-way direction and only like a line. It's gonna give you more vocabulary for even if you only want to play metal. But if you listen some jazz or some country music or whatever, that will just help you to create more things in your playing. And I think it's a good thing. And I watched a few of those historical shows, and I really like it. It's very well done, and I learned. We always learn something. So this is something I remember I really liked about. And Drum Channel, this is something too. You're always bringing new ideas as people can refer to. You're not lost on YouTube, you know, with like a 1.5 million of information around, you know, like it's a real information. You make your researches, and I really like that. It's well done.
Yeah, we've got all the information. I mean, you know, there's the trick to getting better is very simple. It's practice. So I can give you a million different ways that you can get better in 5 minutes, but believe me, it takes practice no matter what, you know, and that's why we, you know, Drum Channel is, we're not looking, you know, to have maybe the most subscribers in the world, but we're looking to have serious people who are really able to spend time on a regular basis practicing, and we know we have the information there that will get them better because it's worked for years with some of the greatest drummers that are around today. And you mentioned something too. I'll go back to, we recently did a show with Chad Smith and Abe Laborio Jr. and Terry Bozzio and Steve Perkins, and I've been talking about this recently, that when you talk about jazz, it brings up a connotation that it's a style of music I don't particularly like for younger drummers, or I'm not into that. But if you think of the term jazz kind of like as the word funky, as opposed to what the rest of the band is playing, it's what you're bringing to the band. So what is jazz? There's a jazz feel in what Charlie Watts plays. There's a jazz feel in what Ringo plays. There's a jazz feel in what Chad Smith plays. You wouldn't sit down and call any of those guys jazz musicians, but everybody in that round table and drummers that we've talked with about this subject through the years understand that's the swing. Think of the word swing. It all has to swing and make you want to dance. And that's what jazz brings to your sensibilities when you learn that, is the ability to improvise, number one, which is taking chances. And I think Chad Smith said it was great. And somebody said, what is rock? And he said, rock is taking chances. That's what he likes about it the most. You don't have to do it. That's one of the keys to the Chili Peppers. They go out there and they'll play the same song differently every night. And taking chances and falling down sometimes and getting up. Of course, the trick if a drummer makes a mistake, just do it 3 times quick and everybody will think you did something really been working on for a lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. And to continue in that, for example, you just mentioned when it's jazz or whatever funk, there's so many different layers of style of music, like jazz, funk, jazz, Latin, jazz. It depends on how you're gonna present that to someone new. If someone never heard jazz, or you have a conception of jazz is only ding, 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 it can be hard. There's so many good music and good style in every style. For example, for me, I've been introduced with jazz with Herbie Hancock and Miles Davis when I was a kid. That was, and I still dig them. I really like that. Every time I can listen to those. But when I went to college, it was more tribal tech jazz, you know, like a really like fusion, complicated, or like all the how can I say that, like all the new synthesizer sound, like you know, like Chick Corea, Electric Band, things like that. So it depends how you're gonna present that to the new people. They never heard that style. And it's the same for the funk. There's funk I don't like, but there's funk I like. You know what I mean? It's not because it's funk, it's cool. you have to see what you like in the style. So that was a good point you mentioned.
Keep an open mind too. And for young drummers, they should play at every opportunity. If a polka band calls you and they need a drummer, go play with a polka band, you know?
Oh yeah, it can be hard. If it's polka,
it is hard, yes.
Very hard. I had a gig, I was playing klezmer for a Jewish wedding like many years ago, and I never heard that. And I was subbing a friend of mine, he's Jewish, and he was like, hey, you want to do that? I was like, yeah, it's easy, man. It's a top 40 band, wedding style. No. It was the hardest gig, one of the hardest I had in my life. And they have odd meter. And those odd meters, sometimes if you don't know them, it's like whatever, like African like patterns. If you don't know those patterns, you're screwed. You cannot play them. You just don't know them. It's their language, and it's I learned.
Well, look at punk rock and Eliminate the Music, and the drummer's playing a really fast polka.
It's true. Exactly. Hey, changing topic, because I want to back to Freddie Gruber later, but I want to ask you something very cool. I mean, you with DW now they get Gretsch, and now you got Slingerland, and that was a good surprise. How you feel to be connect with those four biggest like drum companies in the state? I mean, it's not just in the state, in the world. They're like one of the best. It's
sure.
It's a good surprise. Slingerland, I was fan. I have my first snare ever was a Slingerland.
I don't know if you saw the YouTube video that they put out when I got Slingerland, because it was a surprise. It was actually a group.
Chris sent it to me. Chris sent it to me. And I was like, wow, that's a good surprise.
On YouTube, yeah. So it was. To answer your question in general, Gretsch, which is a line, the actual Gretsch drum company is still owned by the family, by Fred Gretsch, but he allows us to do everything from the standpoint of making it, manufacturing it. So we look at it as part of our staple of great brands that we have. And growing up, to make a long story short, which I'm usually not real good at, there was Slingerland, Ludwig, and Rogers were the three big major companies. When the Beatles hit, Ludwig's production doubled. Everybody knows that story. That was in the early 60s. So for me growing up, guys, and they made very good drums, but they were making them very, very fast. Slingerland was probably half the size of Ludwig back in those days. So as a young drummer growing up, it's like, hey, there was kind of a vibe that the Slingerland drums were a little cooler during that generation, during that decade than Ludwig, because they didn't have the problem of having to make them so fast. And then Rogers excelled in hardware. They had a little different shell construction. So Slingerland was kind of like a cool brand to have. And then it has the history of Gene Krupa going way back, which is, not back near as far as Gretsch, which goes back into the 1800s. So I'd always thought it would be fun to be part of American drum manufacturing. And so I kidded with my son, Chris, for years, and we'd looked into, what about Slingerland? I think it has such a cool vibe to it. And so many of our artists, friends of mine, when I started DW, of course, we were just making, for the first 5 or 6 years, it was a teaching studio only. We weren't doing any manufacturing. Drum workshop was lessons and courses and classes. When I got into the manufacturing, and we made bass drum pedals for the next 7, 8 years, I got a relationship with almost every drummer in the world because they were all using our pedals. And then when we started making drums, most of them were playing Slingerland when they switched over. So a good part of our staple of artists are very well aware of their Slingerland. It was their first kit. I can go through a long list of our artists. So it was kind of like bringing what is their great memories of drums when they grew up into the DW family. So it kind of made a full circle for us there. And then Gretsch, and when I look back in the early days again, Ludwig, Slingerland, Rogers, the Gretsch drums had a different sound because they didn't have a reinforcing hoop. In the earlier days, Ludwig, Slingerland, Rogers did. When those brands got sold to bigger manufacturers, they cut the cost of putting that reinforcing hoop in, which doubles the amount of time it takes to make a shell. And then Gretsch, kind of ended up with that great Gretsch sound because it worked really well, especially for bebop. And they were in New York back in the 50s, so they dominated with all the clubs in New York. So Gretsch kind of filled a certain sound that was different than what the DW drums had. Slingerland builds the family vibe of the history of drum manufacturing before we started. I mean, we only go back really seriously into the late 80s. So there was a lot going on with drums in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So we kind of take Slingerland for that history, and we're working on relaunching. First thing, because that's going to be probably the next question everybody's going to ask you, what are we going to do with Slingerland, is the Radio King snare drum. We got delayed a little bit because some of the people that we wanted to work with us here in LA weren't able to do prototypes until recently, but we're kind of almost back full stream ahead with that project now. So, and eventually we'll get into some sets, and I want to tie it into the history of the era. Slingerland set of the 40s, Slingerland of the 50s, 60s, DW. So here's the drum set that was made, here's the sound of it, and here's what the people were playing. So you'll kind of round out the picture from just not only education from the standpoint of being the drummer, but what the drummer had to play on. I'm very excited to try them because, like I said, my first drum was a Westbury kit, but my first real snare was actually a Slingerland. And then the funny story about that, I was in a studio in my hometown, and there's like a few bags for trashes and boxes and things like that, and there's a one shell snare there, and I'm like, who's that snare? And one guy later told me, it's an old snare I have, I don't care, like I just got a Pearl Export. I'm like, okay, can I get it? It's like, yeah, get it for free, or give me a pair of drumsticks. So I got the snare for 1 or 2 pair of drumsticks, changed the head. The throw-off was not the greatest. It was the model. They always like have some issues to stay on. So, but I fixed it, and I had that snare for a long time. And actually, I sold it. Don't ask you, but I sold it. But I had it for me 10 years. So it was my first real snare, good snare. So, but I'm very happy to hear that, because you did a very good job with pushing Gretsch too, and Gretsch is a very good historical kit and in the industry, and the people really love them. The new kit are amazing, and they do a great job, always top quality. And I think this is a good it's a good option for drummers. Like, I mean, now they can have so many good drum from back in the days, you know. Yeah, that's the idea. We'll go all the way back with the different drums, different sounds, and stick to. There's a lot of tricks that we have to do and behind the scenes to make it exactly the way they used to, with the exact same thicknesses of plies. So it's a bit of a tricky operation, but we're going to nail it exactly the way as it was. I'm sure. So back to Freddie Gruber, because I'm curious to hear what you wanted to say, because I've seen what he did with Neil Peart and Weckl, or with the way it was all circular, like, you know, like a circle for don't make effort and be natural body. But well, how was the experience for you? The unique thing with Freddie, I was very lucky in that I was about his first student. That was an older student that he taught, that was a playing student when he moved to LA and started teaching. So he taught in a much more analytical way. He really worked and broke down your technique as if you had never played drums before. I mean, I went to him, I was making a living as a drummer, I was supporting a family, I bought a house, and but when I went to him, I was just like, okay, I want to hear and get your opinion of what Buddy Rich is doing, just the technique. So we would spend months literally on a practice pad, looking at motions, arm motions. He would be breaking down in great detail with me a series of exercises to explain how Buddy was using his body to follow and motivate the bounce of the stick. Understanding it and doing it are still two completely different things. Don't let me think that because you understand it, you can do it. But there's a real key thing that Buddy used that what I'm doing is going through all the books I had with Freddie, the original books with all his original transcriptions in it, because he taught much differently after that. He was teaching much more seasoned drummers, and he wasn't going to change the way they played because they were very successful and they were making their own albums. So he modified what they were doing, especially in later years with Steve and with Neil too. It was taking what they were doing and modifying it. It wasn't like taking them going back to zero to ground one. And they were great musicians too. So I'm breaking down a series of all the lessons that the way he brought them down to me, and first doing a little documentary video just so people can kind of see what we're talking about, see what Freddie was talking. And it's Freddie in his words, looking at Buddy, explaining. And then I would actually show what Freddie's talking about on a pad, as would Freddie. And to confuse you and not confuse you, the one big thing that Buddy did that I haven't seen in anybody else, and I've always been kind of a analytical guy, I guess, looking at drummers play. You love to hear them, but I'm always looking at how they're using their body in order to get out what they're doing. Was what Freddie used to call the inside release, and that's a motion where it's the opposite of the Moeller method, which is the outside release. Yep. It's more the idea of going inside. But he used the Moeller method very much just like every other drummer does. But he had this extra little thing he added into that. So you'd have to see it to understand it. But we talked about it a little bit, I know, when you were out. So there'll be some videos we'll have that'll be kind of a documentary of what it's all about. And then later in the year, there'll be a breakdown, step-by-step breakdown of lessons that you can practice, just as Freddie would have broken them down back in the day.
Okay. It's interesting because a lot of people, they when they start by themselves without teaching, they will always go like, okay, that's the drumstick, I will play crossing, and because I've seen people doing that, and they don't realize even how important are the fingers and how to place the drumstick and how that can help and improve your playing. Look at Keith Carluck, you were saying, like doing like that Mahler technique. He really jumped on it and he really played well, and is one of the good example of the modern drummer playing that technique. I will say I'm kind of hybrid. I will go like here, or I will move a little bit, like that. But some people will play all the time like this, for example, or people switch from traditional to classic. And this is, I remember Dave Weckl was saying about this experience with Freddie Gruber. He asked him like, well, you will need to choose, because Weckl was always flipping like sticks, like, okay, I will do this, I will be like that, I will do this, I will do like this. And he told him like, well, no, choose one. And he was telling us that in one drum clinic a long time ago, and he reset all his drum and he started to play only traditional. And I think it was I don't say it's the best, for everybody are different, but I think for him it was a very good approach. And
yeah, one of Freddie's points was, whether you're in traditional or match grip, the arcs are basically the same. It's just different degrees of the arcs. It's fulcrum, wrist, fingers, and forearm. Combinations of how you're going to use those four things is going to be everything that everybody uses when they play. And there's no wrong way to do it.
Nope.
If you're doing it in a way in which is comfortable to you, and you have some of the basics down, you have to learn how to follow and motivate the bounce of the stick. You can't make it go up and down. You have to follow it once you get it going up and down. But once you have that basic down, then some drummers play with more fingers than they do fulcrum, and they do wrist and their forearm combinations. But it's just interesting to see how Buddy did it, because it'll and any little inkling of that, just like you take a private lesson with somebody, that's the advantage of private instruction, because I can't go through the computer and say, no, a little bit more there, you just have to do it. But another key thing Freddie used to always say is, I can't teach somebody how to play the drums. He says, I can show you how to do it, and then it's a feeling that you're going to have to get, like learning how to ride a bicycle. I can hold on to your neck, but I'm going to let go, and you're going to have to figure out exactly how to get your balance and do it right. That's the key. And once you do, you don't lose it.
I don't want to interrupt. I'm stretching the time a bit, so you're so it's very interesting, and I won't tell you, we talk a bit. It's perfect. So let's say we still have around 5 minutes. So about 5, okay.
And you have great guys coming on, by the way. So just watch their technique, everybody, and you're going to get a drum lesson just by watching them play.
Yes, but this is a good thing. You said by video. I have a lot of drum teacher friends. They have to change all their approaches, like during the COVID, for teaching their student like online. Like Rick Latham just told me the other day, like he has to refigure the camera and to bring it new ways to tell them and see the student, because he has like multiple camera, for example. But your student doesn't have that. Most of the time they will have one camera, maybe it's their phone and it's not clear. So he has to really work with that. But it's the same situation for many drum teacher. But I think with that, a lot of people will have learned a lot about them and about the business and about how to make it happen.
Yeah, so it's even when we get back to whatever the new normal happens to be, or the normal, hopefully, this experience is going to change a lot of things. People are going to see that they can get more online. I think hopefully it's going to be growing more of young drummers in order to inspire them to get into playing. I want to get to the 15 to 30-year-olds, and really people who would like, oh, I couldn't do it, it's too loud, I never had time. Well, hey, you got the time now and you can do it, and don't stop. It can change your life.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, what about that? About changing life? What is your life right now? I mean, what you're gonna do? What are your projects? Do you have any future things because you always have ideas? Like what are like your new targets, like for the next months, for example?
Yeah, well, quickly, some crazy ones. One, fortunately, as I mentioned, my son is the CEO of DW, so he's been working for the last 3 or 4 months on things that have absolutely nothing to do with making drums, which is what we usually work on. it's all been navigating through this unique time that we're in right now, and keeping the company stable and going, which fortunately we're doing really well in that respect. I keep my hand in the R&D side with DW. We've got a lot of new products that we're working on coming out with. We have a flagship one that we'll be introducing now, still on track, the end of this year or January of next year. Been spending a lot of my time. We are working on a whole rebuild of the Drum Channel site, which will be launched the end of July. That's been about a year-long project. And again, we want to really make it, the serious drummers who are practicing, we have the best lessons in the world for them, simply because we have great teachers. But we wanted to engage the younger generation a lot more. So we're going to bring a lot of things that are going to make it a lot easier for young players to get in. And also we have a whole portal for teachers. So a lot of teachers are using Drum Channel as part of their online instruction. And that's very rewarding to me, because it's seeing great results.
This is interesting because you were mentioning like you have a lot of great teacher, and it's true because for example, like I mentioned, you can have only one teacher, but like on Drum Channel you have access to a lot, and you can even be a teacher and have a student back home and use that platform as a reference, and you can because you will always learn from different teachers. And
oh yeah, teachers love it. Yeah, because you can't. I mean, the problem teaching without that reference is the student will come in the following week and maybe doing it not quite right. So there's another week you have to correct them. Well, if you give him the lesson and he also is going home and seeing a video of it, he's going to see that lesson reinforced every single night. So he's going to learn faster. He's going to have more fun. And the main asset is reading, independence. There's a couple of things in a half-hour lesson that it's difficult to cover everything. So you can give the students some online lessons on things that you don't have time to cover in the real lesson. And today, the kids, with their attention span, I'm not complaining, but because I have grandkids, but they just want to sit down and play the drums. They're not going to want to be on a practice pad for a half hour during the lesson. So you want to spend part of the time engaging them, having it be fun, and then give them their homework to go home and do, just like they would if they were at school online.
So true. That's the thing I found out for me and for a few students. My best time for practicing pads, for example, like just snare drum on pads, it was morning. It's morning, or when I watch TV at night. So I'm trying to just find one or two patterns and doing it like very relaxed with a metronome. Sometimes not, and that make me grow up faster, because I always told my student, when you want to practice something and doing it without thinking, read a book. I was reading the news and doing like the clave with my foot, and you read the books or whatever, and after, when you finish, you need to remember what you read, because if you focus on your foot and your feet and you will check it out, you will be screwed. But if you really put attention, the foot or the rhythm you're going to play with it, or with your hand, it's going to start to be a second sense. So you're going to be like a music running around you. So that was one of my tricks for building. And it's true, the attention span, it can be hard for if there's no screen, it's like they're like confused. But I understand. But this is something people can do. Usually I will put music on the side, sometimes if it's not a screen, but it's a good way to practice. Thank you for mentioning that. Well,
did you read a book with horses in it, and that dream came true, right?
No, I don't do that. No.
Did you know someday?
No, I don't remember that. I was more watching when I was a kid, practicing pad. I was practicing just for fun. When I arrived to college, I was most of my reading was modern drummer. Actually, I was getting. Actually, it's funny. I was reminding that the other day. There's like in modern drummer, I think I was like 14 years old or 15 years old. There's a contest to win a DW drum. Like I remember it was green kit, like 3 toms, 2 floor, a super kit. And I think I sent every day a post mail card or whatever, like a letter for win with what I needed to do for 3 months, until I realized, except province of Quebec and Florida have different laws for games. And I was like, I should read the little details. So you see, but I wish I could have won that kit, And the other day when I make some cleaning in my house, I found your old catalogs from DW from the 90s, and there's a few kit like super cool color, and they really inspired me at that time. So yeah, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Times fly done. You have before we go, please just tell us where the people can contact you, where the people can, like, for information. Like, I mean, if they want to see the newest thing, is it the Facebook of Drum Channel or DW? Where the best place to get?
Yeah, we're on all social networks, of course, but you can easily go to drumchannel.com. Info@drumchannel.com. Don Lombardi @drumchannel.com is my email address, and I would love to hear from everybody. Any questions or ideas that they have. And if they want to find out more about you, again, I did a great interview with you that's on Drum Channel right now.
Yeah,
playing with part of the guys in the band too.
Yeah, with Louis-Pierre. Yeah, it was pretty good. Well, thank you so much. I wish you
thank you.
Great time and great summer coming, and stay safe.
Tell the guys coming on, I'm sorry if they're late. You're the one that made them late. Don't get them mad at me, right?
Okay, no worry about that. Take care. Bye bye.
Soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Hello, Jim Riley. How are you doing?
How you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me well?
I can now.
Okay, apparently we had some issues. It's not coming from I receive a notification from the platform. They have issues. So if it doesn't work, I will log out myself too, and we will relog in 1 minute, okay?
Well, that's what I just did, and it worked out fine.
It worked out fine? Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's not on my side, it's the platform. So, nice to so Rick Sound is back when you have a guest. Perfect. Okay, cool. So apparently we can hear when you're there. Awesome. So I will just mention before we start, sorry, guys, if you listen, sorry, we have a notification. It's not on my side. It's coming from the platform. I receive a notification saying they have some issues with connection and sound. So if that happens again, please let us know in the chat, okay? Sorry about that. It's not on my side. Welcome, my friend. I want to introduce you, but I didn't want to do it if nobody hears you, so I will do it with you this time. Is the drummer from the Rascal Flat, modern drummer, voted best country drummer 2011, 15, and 17. You've been to University of North Texas, and you got your degree in education there, so congrats for that. Masterclass clinician, very well known worldwide. You perform with in a lot of places. And I was surprised when I've seen that the Grammy Award, late shows with David Letterman, The Voice, American Idol, Today Show, Dancing with the Star, and The Generous. And I will stop there because we can talk about that until tomorrow. You have a great lineup. You endorse Fabian, Ludwig, Remo, Gibraltar, Leighton Percussion, Innovative Perk, and Roland. Wow, man, a great lineup of, and congratulations for all you did in your life. I was very impressed.
Thank you.
So how are you doing in Nashville?
Man, I'm really doing great. I mean, I know these are funny times, but I've been very fortunate to stay busy pretty much the whole time during this shutdown. I was actually in between the time when you and I spoke for a minute, and just now I just did a track like while in between there. Just spending a lot of time recording and teaching and just doing the things that I can do right now.
Well, you have a lot of students. Actually, we've been introduced by one of your students, so thank you for him for that good connection.
Yeah.
So, well, we chat a bit about that before the show, but yeah, you have a big tour coming out with the Rascal Flat, and all have been canceled. Well, do you think all that will be postponed, moved, or?
It's hard to say, but it's more than likely that it's canceled altogether. I mean, right now, I just don't have a lot of information as to what's going to be happening going forward. This was supposed to be a really big farewell tour, like a 20-year retrospective of Rascal Flatts' career, and instead, like everybody else's dates, they're gone, and so that leaves a big question mark over what will be next for Rascal Flatts. And of course, I'm an employee, so I'll just have to wait to see what happens in the future. But the point is, though, that I can't sit around and just kind of hope that that's going to happen. What I've always told my students is, as a working drummer, you want to keep multiple revenue streams going. So I like to talk about my revenue streams like a table with 10 legs. So if 3 or 4 of those legs get kicked out, you still got plenty of them left.
Yeah, you have
if you got a table with 3 legs and one of them gets kicked out, it doesn't matter which one, your table's going to fall over. So the more revenue streams that you have as a musician, the better off you're going to be. So for me, up to this point, I was playing live with Rascal Flatts, playing live with some other people, doing sessions, like in studio, doing sessions at home, teaching lessons at home, teaching lessons via Skype at the time. And then I was doing my drum camps, which I think we're going to talk about later.
Yep.
But so now, there's 2 or 3 of those things, like, playing with Rascal Flatts, playing with other people, playing sessions in studios. Those are all gone. So I'm having to rely on the other things. And that fortunately has been going very well.
Congratulations for you. We were mentioning about Rascal Flat, like what can be the future, but just to mention something cool, I was playing in a country cover band music a long time ago, and we played a lot of your songs. And because I think they're great song, great melody, and they're very, like they're well organized and people love it. And I'm sure your band will go well, and they will survive for that, because you have great songs, and that's not easy to have great songs, and you have that. So congratulations for that too.
Yeah. I mean, that was always something for the guys that was very important. I mean, and I think that's kind of one of the things that really separates country music from a lot of other genres, is the care that's taken in the songwriting process, and the real mastery of songwriting that so many of the professional songwriters have all around the world, that contribute to the country music library of songs. I mean, it's pretty amazing quality of music, and that's what originally drew me to Nashville and drew me to the genre, because I didn't grow up. I mean, I grew up closer to you than I did to, I grew up in Massachusetts.
Yep.
So I didn't grow up around country music. it wasn't until I got to Texas that I heard a lot of country music, but then I was really attracted to the quality of the musicianship and the songs that I was hearing that really, made me want to come here.
It's so true what you mentioned it. I got when I was in Nashville, I got invited to a private party in they were launching an album, and I remember it's one of the best bars. It's down. It's not on Broadway. It's outside. It's a basement. I remember the name. They invited me.
Probably the basement.
It's probably the basement. I think it's that, and it was very private, and we got an invitation. They were playing so well, so tasty. I was speechless. And they are not much like hi-hat, snare, kick. When they has a drum, feels and all it was at the right place. And it's true. And it's not easy to play that. Some people is like, country music, it's easy, it's the same running. No. It's hard. It's super hard.
The fact that you understand that, makes you a lot closer to being like a truly great country player, because the first thing with any genre is that you have to respect it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then if you respect it, then you'll study it. And if you study it, then you'll really figure out the special things about any genre of music that that make it unique. Now, I was doing some teaching actually for the U.S. military bands.
Okay.
And I was at one of their military installations where they teach music. And I asked one of the soldiers, I said, I want you to go up to the whiteboard and I want you to draw me the best circle that you can draw. And so he got up there and he drew a circle. And I said, well, I think we can all agree that that is a circle. And, it seems like a good one. But if we look at it closer, we can see that this side's a little flat, and where it comes together isn't really. And my point was, playing country music, playing pop music,
it's hard.
Is deceivingly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to play only what the music requires. And it really requires a lot of artistry from the players. You got to play with great tone on the drums. You've got to play with the right intent, and all of the parts that you play have to be congruent with the song. They have to make sense with the song.
Yeah, you need to play for the music.
Absolutely.
Yeah, at any ages, I think you learn from that. And on my side was when I was doing like soundtrack for actually ghost tracking in at Sound City Studio in California in 2007 or 6, and I was tracking for the Jackson 5 guys. They were there, and they asked me to do a few tracks for X-Files and stuff like that. And I remember they asked me, yeah, you can go pick a drum. And I took one Gretsch. It was the Gretsch from the Jackson 5. And I put it there. And I started to play one. And I was doing very basic song. And I did one fill. Let's say, and no, doesn't pass. Doesn't talk with that music. So, but I didn't understand at that time. I was too green. I was like 22 years old, 21 years old. So I'm like, yeah, but it's cool. No, we don't care about it. It's cool. It doesn't sing with the actual music. So I have to learn from there. And since that moment, I always try to improve that and play for the song.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I would play along to Billy Joel records. And I would listen to Liberty DeVito, and I really enjoyed Liberty. And every once in a while, I'd go, well, why didn't he play this? He really could have done this. He could have done this. And what I realized later was he played exactly what the song was required of him. Exactly. And he wasn't using the song as a platform to show the world how great he was.
Yes.
But in the process, he showed the world how great he was.
He's a great drummer, man. He's an amazing drummer. It's true. Back to what you were taking when you were in Texas. How was your experience to learn? Because a lot of good musicians have studied in Texas. So how was your experience there?
Yeah, so University of North Texas is a really great music school. A lot of people don't know. I mean, it was the first university, at least in North America, to offer a degree in jazz, and that was in the 1940s, I think.
Okay.
It is an amazingly large music school. To give you an idea, like the average college in North America, if they have a great music school, they might have between 10 and 25 percussionists studying there. North Texas has 200 percussion music majors. So the size and scope of this school is mind-boggling. The competition is mind-boggling, but also the sense of camaraderie with the players that are there. Yes, you're sort of you're competing against each other, but you're kind of doing it together, and there's a lot of times where, you're really supporting your fellow musicians. So there's a lot of fantastic musicians that were there while I was there. I'm sure you're probably a fan of Keith Carlock.
Yep.
Keith and I, our practice rooms were literally 2 doors down from each other. And we played in the drum line together in 1989. And we've been friends ever since. It's a good friend of mine named Jason Sutter that plays with Cher.
Yep.
But he also played with Marilyn Manson and Smash Mouth and Foreigner and Joe Perry. He's done a lot of really cool things, and he's actually my college roommate.
Wow. Okay. So
yeah, John Button, the bass player that plays with the Who.
Yep.
He played with Shakira before that. He was another guy that was there. Jeff Coffin from Dave Matthews Band, the sax player, is also, from that same time period. There was a lot of really, really great musicians there. And so it was fantastic to be around them and to be in the percussion program, because both the percussion program and the jazz program were really top notch. And it was really a fantastic environment to just take some years to get better at my craft.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can show that to your student, because you have lots of students, so I'm sure they feel it. Actually, talking about that, let's talk about your drum camp, because it's very interesting, because a lot of people talk about it. And how is your approach? How long it is? How you manage your drum camp in general?
Well, that story starts a little further back. So when I started teaching a lot, about 2008, I started getting back to teaching a lot. And it was really a funny time, because it was at the height of Rascal Flatts. Rascal Flatts was literally one of the biggest artists in the world at that time. They were the #1 digitally downloaded artist of 2006, So around the time that I bought this house, I decided I was going to start teaching more. And I had a mentor that was a college professor, and he was teaching kids on the side.
Okay.
And the way that he was doing it was in group lessons.
Okay.
And I thought that was very interesting. So I went to his studio to study what he was doing. Okay. And he had, 6 or 7 drum sets and some marimbas, and he had all sorts of things. And I kind of took some of the things that he was doing and changed some of them up and made some of them my own. And when I moved into my studio here, I decided that what I could do is I could actually set up 6 drum sets. I'm going to turn this around. And so this is a new setup for me here, but you can see these are a bunch of my older tour kits. And that's the kit that I obviously have set up to record right now. And so
look amazing.
6 kits. I've got 2 marimbas. Okay. And I started teaching kids here at that time. And I was getting a lot of enjoyment out of that. And several years ago, my friend Rich Redmond did a drum camp here in Nashville. And he asked me to come teach there. And he said, "Oh, man," he says, "next year, you're going to end up doing a drum camp here. You're going to end up doing a drum camp." And I said, "Nah, I'm not really interested in doing any drum camps." And then a couple of years went by, and I said, if I did do a drum camp, I would do it differently than what he's doing. He likes to do everything is really big with Rich. It's a big production, and I can talk about him because he's one of my best friends. And so I said, well, if I do a drum camp, I'm going to try to keep it a lot smaller. Okay. So what I did was I decided to put it out on Facebook, and invite some people down. And I do from 5 to 7 players, and they're here for the weekend. So I have people, they check into a local hotel Thursday, and then we start studying Friday. Saturday morning, they watch me do a session. Then we do our classes Saturday. Saturday night, we usually would go out to a restaurant to eat together. Although this time, because of the virus, we actually decided to have a backyard barbecue, which was really fantastic. So the first one I did was a couple years ago, and I actually just finished the 20th one this last weekend. So I've done my 20th drum camp, and my next drum camp is actually going to be mostly rescheduled Canadian students that haven't been able to make it down because of the shutdown.
Yeah, the border.
Mm-hmm. I literally have 4 students from Canada that'll be coming down for one of my next 2 drum camps. And what we do is we study things that are going to help us become a better musician behind the drum set. So we're learning, we really concentrate on a lot of simple ideas. We concentrate on, the quality of the sounds we're making, how to create grooves that are working for the song, how to incorporate fills that are going to connect the sections, working on the orchestration in terms of the verses and choruses and all of that sort of thing. We work on the Nashville number system, and yeah, and then I've actually got a new book that that's coming out at the end of the year, and that is on language around the drum set.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've got 2 drum set books. I've got, the first one's been out for 5 years. It's called Survival Guide for the Modern Drummer, and we study out of that in my camp. And that is a styles book, going everything from working on pop to country to rock to blues to metal to to world styles. And that's a really fun study. And then the new book is called Improvisational Tools for the Modern Drummer, and that'll be out at the end of the year.
Wow.
And I'm very excited about that as well.
Sure. You said something very interesting. You said like we do one day. They're learning what I do, and the other day they're watching me, like looking at what I do in a session. And I think this is the best way to learn, because when back in college, I have one drum teacher. He was the drummer for house band, and every day was bringing me his drum sheet, and he was like, okay, you have like 5 minutes to look at it and play with the record, and that makes you learn so much. And I'm sure your student, when they see you playing something that in the way you're used to it with the number charts, it's the best way to learn. It's the real thing,
And that's my first book that I wrote, is actually on the Nashville number system.
Uh-huh.
And it's a book called Song Charting Made Easy. And yeah, that's a really interesting subject, because I studied music theory in college, among other things. And they don't give you a lot of real practical uses for music theory when you get out of college, but it was very interesting how the Nashville number system was pretty much just the modern application to some music theory that's hundreds of years old. So it's it's been something that I've been very passionate about. My thoughts have always been, I don't really need someone to write a drum chart, writing boom got boom boom got for 5 minutes.
It's a late cheat.
I need someone to tell me what everyone else is going to be doing, and then I can figure out what the song needs based on that. And that's kind of the basic premise of what I would do with the Nashville number system.
That's so cool. And the time flies very fast. Okay, so I have another question to ask you, actually, about now you have your drum camp. You did a lot of master classes, clinics. You play at PASIC. You did a lot of drum events. Continuing in that line, what is the most the most important thing you like to share when you do it? Because a drum camp is different than a clinic. The clinic you will have an hour and a half, or drum fest 45 minutes. But if you do one of those shorter events, what you like to demonstrate and what you like to talk about in general, what are your goals?
Well, it really depends on where I am. I remember I did a drum clinic in Cuba. Okay. And so the last thing I wanted to do was try to like really chop out, because I knew there was going to be, you know, probably 11-year-old kids in the audience that could smoke me, you know. So the thing that I concentrate the most on are the things that I've attained like the really high level on, in terms of being able to convey to people how to really listen and play for the song. And that's what I spend a lot of my time with. And then the other thing is, of course, what I've been working on with my new book, which is, you know, teaching some people improvisational language around the kit. And a lot of that is based on getting good on a single surface. So, I mean, if you want to get great around the drum set, one of the best things you can do is to work on your snare drum playing. And as a teacher, one of the things, and I speak to all the teachers out there, don't make the mistake of going from snare drum to drum set and then never going back to snare drum. If you're teaching a 30-minute lesson, you should spend 10 minutes of it on snare drum, you know, almost every time, because you need to continue to build the foundation for your students. And so that's something that I've tried to do to make sure that, you know, my students have a really solid foundation.
It's a language. I mean, the snare is the bass, and I was on my side was Dennis Chambers was a good example for that. All the ghost note, all the subdivision, all the pattern. So I start from there, and after that you start to go around the kit with all the subdivision and changing accent. And sometimes it's not that hard. I've seen Tim Alexander in a drum event long time ago, just playing a hi-hat, but just changing the accent, and just creating accent. But if you don't develop that, like you said, you don't go back and you make it clear, like nice, it won't improve your playing. And this is a very important thing. Hey, the time fly. We have like a few minutes. Please tell us where the people can reach you for if they want drum lessons and for your drum camp.
Yeah, so so these days I'm certainly available for I teach on Zoom, which probably a lot of people are very familiar with now.
Yep.
And of course, I have my drum camps. And one of the best places, the easiest places to reach me is on Instagram. And that's, you know, at Jim Riley Music on Instagram. I'll keep it simple. That's probably a pretty good place. You can also find me on Facebook at, I believe it's Jim Riley Music, but I know it's Jim Riley Music on Instagram. And of course, if you don't want to get on those social media sites, you can always go to my website, which is jimrileymusic.com.
Okay.
And leave me a message there.
And by the way, thank you for I wrote you directly and you answer. So it's it's very nice.
I always try to do that, and I'm always surprised when people are surprised, because you know, it seems like a pretty normal thing to do. I mean, if people write to me, they've got questions, I'm going to answer them for sure.
Yeah, congratulations for your career, and I'm sure you will do a lot of things like crazy. I would like to go, like I told you, I would like to go check out your drum camp when my schedule will be like back to normal. But I would like to go hang and see that. And thank you for say yes for the channel. And I'm sure everybody, they really dig it today. They really like what you said. You said a lot of good comments, and that's the purpose of the channel, an educative channel. So thank you so much for your for being on Drumfield Cafe, and we can keep in touch, my friend.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Cool. Have a good night. Take care.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye-bye. I hope the sound is better now. If I'm talking and you cannot hear nothing, please tell me in the chat right now for I cannot talk for like 10 minutes for nothing. So, so please, if you can tell me if you hear me well, because like I said, where I received a notification about some technical issues from the platform. So it's happening. So if you can hear me right now, let me know, please. Just a few reminders before we go with the other guests. Please subscribe Drumfield Cafe on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Right now, it's more Facebook. We're reaching with the World Edition around 1,500 to 6,000 viewers, like per show. Depends of the shows. We have a French version, and that show reached around 1,000 to 1,500. Thanks, Gordon, for telling me I'm not talking for nothing. So, yeah, today is the last show of the season 1. From starting in 2 weeks, we're gonna have 10 capsule pre-recorded, and those capsule are like from 15 minutes to 1 hour. I will launch the channel tonight about that. And the next show, the first show, the season 2 is September 15. If you want to be aware of all the contests, we already give away a lot of stuff. You need to be on Facebook. That's the way we for now we talk about all the giveaway. So let's go with the next guest. Is the drummer for Periphery, co-founder of the software of Get Good Drums, educator, clinician, multiple hours, including best clinician, educator, and best metal drummer, modern drummer. He's from Baltimore. Started to play at 3 years old. He started at a young age to play around a town like a rock band, like reggae band. He actually he played in the Animal as leader. I didn't know. So let's say hi to my friend. What's up, Matt Halpern?
How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's why I text you, because we had some technical issues and I don't know what's going on. So now if you hear me, cool.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. What's up in Baltimore?
It's a nice night. It's starting to get dark a lot later now, which I really enjoy. I love the summer just for that reason. I like to be productive during the day, so it's more productive hours.
Yeah, because yeah, I know in that part, the east part, it can be dark and gray. So well,
yeah.
But well, when you rehearse with Periphery, do you have your own? Are you doing that in Baltimore, or where are you doing your rehearsals in general?
It used to be in like close to Washington D.C., okay. Which is about an hour from me.
Okay.
But now, since I moved into my new home, I have space in the basement. So from here on out, our rehearsals will be here, which is fantastic. And I can house everybody. They can stay with me. So it's a nice little addition to our rehearsal space.
Did you took some pictures of your studio or your basement?
I'm starting to. It's not there yet. I'm still working on it. I want to set up similar to what Jim was, showing. I won't have 6 kits set up, but I want to at least have 2. And I don't really teach too much in person unless I'm on tour. Like I don't really teach in person at home at all.
Yep.
But there are certain students who I've had for a very long time from Baltimore, and I want to be able to offer that experience here if I can. So that's part of the plan. So once it's all set up, I'll send you some pictures.
So yeah, man, so that sounds pretty cool actually, because a lot of people, they couldn't practice during the COVID. A pad is cool, but after 2 weeks, you can kill yourself, so it can be like cool to have a drum to hit, and now with electronic kits, it's kind of cool too. So you can have so much options anyway.
I'm just going to turn the light up over here just so it's a little bit brighter. 1 second.
No problem. Take your time anyway. I was scared for the platform will shut down, so now it's okay.
Yeah, no, we're good. Okay, this is much better.
And
hopefully it will be.
Well, I want you to tell us a bit about where you came from, because I know you're from Baltimore. I know you've been to college and university, but some people, they only know you as the drummer for Periphery. But what have you passed? What is your past before Periphery?
So I studied with private teachers when I was a lot younger. Throughout my elementary school and grade school years, I worked with just really good private teachers. Being from Baltimore, there's a really great culture and a really great drumming community. Okay. Kind of starting with Dennis Chambers, because he's from here, and of course his influence is massive all over the world, but in his hometown it is hugely influential. So I've been lucky enough to work with some really great teachers, and then pretty early on in middle school, when probably I was about like 10 years old, I started playing with my own bands and playing cover songs and writing music, and I just loved performing. I learned that very early. So I started working in studios with all sorts of different people. I started playing with family friends that were much older than me, who I guess thought it was cool to have a younger dude playing on their records. Yeah. But no, I just played drums either in the studio or at summer camp or at school for talent shows or at venues, and had to have my dad be my chaperone. I played everywhere I possibly could. And then once I got to high school, that's when I started my first real serious band, where we started playing, traveling on the weekends and making CDs and selling CDs and really becoming part of a local music scene. Yep. And that was just a fantastic experience. And through that, because I was part of this music community that was, tons of musicians, tons of bands, I started getting offers to play other gigs, like cover gigs. And I essentially, when I was going to university, I didn't take music classes there. I actually took business classes at university. But probably 4 or 5 nights a week, I was playing cover gigs with a bunch of different artists. So that was my education in performing, in working with other musicians, in playing different styles of music, in playing in different venues. I got such an amazing education through that experience of playing. That more than anything else is probably my favorite thing to do. Meaning, I just like to perform for people. Like I love to play in front of an audience and make people feel the music. That's what I got a chance to do in those formative years, so to speak. And that's definitely at the core of what I do now with Periphery. And before I joined the band, I played in a lot of other different bands and was doing a bunch of different work in education. I was teaching quite a lot. I had a big roster of students that was local to me and at home. And I had ideas to teach online and eventually teach on tour, but I needed a band to go on tour with. So long story short, I ended up auditioning for some friends that started a band called Animals as Leaders. And I played with them for maybe about 6 months or so. And then right around the time that the band went on a short hiatus, Periphery's drummer at the time, Travis, left the band, and Misha just called me and was like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And now it's 11 years later, and I've been in the band since. So
well, congratulations! 11 years is a lot, man. It's a lot. I was talking with Todd Zuckerman about that. How he been in the band for like 15, 20 years, something like. It's like, well, actually, I'm not still in the band, Like I'm in the band, but like we're like family, like we're friends, and it's a growing story. So congratulations! It's pretty cool to do that.
Thank you. I think that's the only way you can have longevity. I did a Zoom class the other day where I was teaching a class, and one of the questions was, "Who is my best friend in the band? Which one of my bandmates?" And honestly, there isn't one, because we are all so close. We all have such a great relationship, and we've worked very hard to have that relationship. But we're all brothers, and we are family, and there's no replacement for that relationship. So I couldn't pick just one.
Maybe you not you. I don't like you, but you're cool. So
yeah, exactly. No, and the cool thing is, like, we each have such a unique relationship one-on-one. And then we all have such a great group relationship at the same time, So I'm very lucky, and I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to do over the years. And a lot of that work, aside from just writing music and performing, has been on staying committed and happy and growing, you know, interpersonally, building the relationship, strengthening the relationship. And I can't tell you, I mean, as the band has grown, we've worked really hard to work well together. You know? And it's really important for any band. You know?
Yeah, it's very interesting you say that, because, for example, I've been touring 7 years with the same band, 300 shows per year, no stop. And sometimes there's issues. Sometimes there's one guy who doesn't feel that great because he has his own life, you know. But the show must go on, and the people, they don't care. Like, I mean, the public, he want to hear it. They want to hear the music. So we have to manage it, and we grow up, and it's question of now we know each other. Like you said, we're like brother. Actually, we do. It's funny, we do Zoom together, like just for hang, and it's feel like it was yesterday. You know, even if we didn't see us for 3 months, it feels like, hey, what's up? But I have a question about that. Actually, you were because you said you did a business class too, and you were practicing at night. And you're a good example. You mix well. I told you the other day, you mix well business and playing, because you can manage like your book, the samples for the drum tracks, and all your classes, your drum camp and all. So this is pretty good. Do you have some advices for the people that are watching right now to how diverse that? Because I think it's a very good example.
You know, I love everything that I do, so it makes it easy to make time each day for every piece of it. And I think that's really important, you know. And then on top of that, it's just what I've always done. I've never just done one thing. And what I mean by that is, like, even when I was going to school, I wasn't just a student. I was playing in a band at night. And I wasn't just playing in a band at night and going to school. I was working on top of that. I got my real estate license when I finished high school. So I was helping my parents, who are real estate agents, show houses and sell houses. So I just always was forced to organize and manage my own schedule, because I always just had responsibilities. And I always talk about this. I don't want to go too far off the path, but I always talk about this. You know, when I was very young, I don't know, 10 years old, I remember saying to my mom, "Mom, I need a haircut." And instead of her picking up the phone and calling for me, her response to me was, "Okay, pick up the phone and make an appointment.
Make it happen. Yeah.
You know, I'll take you there, but you do it." So, and I was like, "Well, I don't know their number." She's like, "Well, here's a phone book. Look it up." So she instilled that sense of personal responsibility and you know, and discipline, so to speak, initiative at a young age. So, and that's just what I always saw. She was a very hard worker. My dad is a hard worker. So it never really seemed like it was too much to juggle. And then going to right now, again, I'm doing things that I genuinely really enjoy working on. So it's pretty easy to arrange my day and enjoy the things that I'm doing. But it takes time sometimes to figure out what those things are, you know? And it takes time to be able to turn them into, you know, profitable endeavors to where you can actually make money doing certain things. But let me say this, it was not like that forever. When I decided that I wanted to be a professional drummer, that's a hard decision because nothing is guaranteed. So even though I went to college, and even though I had other skills, I went and I worked at a restaurant and I waited tables like 3-4 nights a week to make my cash. And then I was gigging 3 or 4 nights a week on top of that. And then I was teaching during the day and I was practicing. And I didn't love working in a restaurant. It wasn't my dream, but it was a great job that gave me the means to be able to do what I wanted to do. And I never looked at it like oh, here's this shitty thing I have to do. I looked at it and I said, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I gain from this? And man, I got to say, if you are a working musician and you need to make money and you can't do it playing, and I know the world is different right now, but when things start opening back up, working in restaurants or bars is a fantastic place to work because one, you know, it's a way to make money quickly, but two, you're meeting and you're dealing with so many people as part of the staff and then as the customers. And I look at that like what you need to be in a band or to be in the music industry. It's a people business. You're always around people. And you have a staff, which is like your band, that you have to learn how to work with.
Yep.
And you don't get to choose in a restaurant who they are. You have to learn how to, yeah, it's challenging. So you learn how to deal with those personalities and function well. But then you have a new customer, a new table to wait on every 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And you never know what their personality is going to be like. And you never know whether they're going to be quiet or loud or mean. And you have to learn how to navigate
with them
those emotions,
Yep.
you know? So to boil that down, if you're going to be a professional musician, you have no choice but to do more than one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The ideal scenario is to do multiple things within music. And some of those things are great, like teaching, doing clinics, coming up with drum books, like you mentioned, playing in a band. Those are all amazing things you can do, but you will have to work towards that. So you just kind of have to, at least at first, know what you want to do at the core, the most important thing, and then you figure out what else you can do around that to make it happen. And eventually, you will be doing music more and more, and waiting tables less and less is the goal. And you know, that's what I found.
But it's a good example because there's no sub job, for example, because you can, whatever, if you do what you like. I know, like you said, I have friends, they still do like side job. They're not their dream, but they still manage it. But they play in a band they're really in love with, or they play with an artist. And like you said, when you decide to make a sacrifices to be a professional musician, it's hard. You need to work your ass and be there and be a professional practicing. But at the same time, it should be natural because it's what you want to do. So you know what I mean? The same thing as practicing. Sometimes practicing, I don't feel all the time now, because when I was in college, I was doing like 8 hours a day. But an example, anyway, now you have a family is the same like me, so we are different in a different place. But for example, if the people wants to do that, is a very good example. You said it, because the people will work their ass. You can have a sub job. It's not I can say that is good for them because they can pay their bills and they can still grow up as a musician. You know what I mean?
It's great. And I mean, I always tell people that ask me, like, how do I figure out what to do? So this is a piece of advice. Make a list. Make a list, and it's sort of like a 2-column list. On one side, you list all of the things that you're really good at, right? And don't be shy, because you're the only one who's going to read this. You can be as bold as you want. So list everything you're really good at. And it could be anything. It could be like, for me, it's like drumming and business and, you know, whatever it is. Like if you're good at woodworking, you can put woodworking. If you're good at graphic design, put graphic design, whatever it is. And then on the other side of the list, you list all the things that you just really enjoy in life. Like I really like comedy, or I really like video games, or I really like architecture, whatever it is. And then once you have those 2 lists written out, you start to draw connections between things you're good at and things you like. And next thing you know, you have like all of these combinations of things. It's like, wait a minute, I'm really good at doing this and I like this, and these 2 things match. Well, there's something that I could maybe spend my time on and maybe make something out of. So if you don't know what to do, make those lists and look at on paper what you're capable of and try it.
It's true.
You have to just try.
Actually, I think your band make that list because I wanted to say, like, Well, something I like about the records you did with Periphery is like the quality of the sound and the songs too, because it's not just bashing, you know. Like I mean, I play metal too forever, and it's very good the mix what you do. So I think your band did that work. You really like say, okay, this is good. That talk for the song. Actually, my question was, when you create one song with your band, are you the type like Mike Portnoy, like with Dream Theater, like back in the days they were like putting like different patterns and sticking them together, or someone have an idea, it's like that's gonna go, or how is the process for be in a song you will like to play forever, for example, for long term?
Yeah, it's really natural usually how it's written. We don't really ever think about time signatures or grooves and try to piece them together. It's definitely not analytical in that way. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I love Dream Theater, Liquid Tension Experiment. I love Mike Portnoy. I love Mike Mangini. All those guys are amazing. So, I mean, I love that style, but that's not the way that we typically do it. And so much of it is just based on like an idea that one of the guitar players will have, and they'll just start working on it, and then we'll listen to it, and everybody else will kind of take that part or that riff and go and just try to feel what they feel. And then we come back and we say, okay, here's this idea, this idea, this idea. What do we all like the best? And then we all typically vote on it. And it's like, oh, this feels the best, and this is the best. But it's really it's a really organic process. And what we've learned and now have committed to as a band is to allow for as much time as we need to write music, because that is the most important thing for any band, right? At the core, you can play shows, but you can't play shows unless you have music to play. So you have to write music. And if you're going to be an original band, you want to write music that you want to hear. You want to write music that you're not currently hearing in the world, that you want to hear in the world. You want to create something that makes you feel something first, right? And then once you have that, then you can go play. But it takes time because, like you said, there's a bunch of us. Somebody might be having a really rough time in life. Somebody might be really busy. Not everybody in the band is going to be on the same page at all times. So rather than trying to just force it all in like a 30-day or 60-day period, we give ourselves a year or more to just be home and to write and to get together and to share ideas, and then to go apart, and we work on it alone, and then we come back, and eventually, you get it all. But it's so important to let creativity happen. Yeah, and you said something right about organic. I mean, that thing is one of the key for your band, because the thing is you're able to mix like production, like with triggers and stuff and good mic, but you can't even play your shit. I mean, what I mean, because some people, they can do crazy album, like the double bass drum are crazy, but they cannot play live, or they won't be that tight. And that's the cool thing. You were able to do what you do on record, and you have a soul, you have a feel. It's not, so I like it. That's why the organic word is a very good key success for a band, I think, because it's you. What's interesting is when we do write initially, we all write parts that we like can't play, that are really hard to play. When we're demoing songs. But by the time that we're going to go in, or at least for me specifically, by the time I actually have to go to the studio and record those parts, I better be able to play it. So my bandmates push me through the writing process to get better on the drums, because the parts that we program and write initially for the demos end up being parts that I'm going to go actually learn and play. For sure. So it's an amazing growing experience for me as a drummer. I get to get better because my bandmates write hard music to play. But the cool part for me too, again, it's like there's 3 guitar players and 1 drummer. I have to play all the drum parts. The guitar players get to divide them up, so they don't always know which parts they're going to play live. So when we get to practice for tour, they're like still figuring out which parts they're each playing. I got to play all of them in the studio. So by the time we get to rehearsal, I'm good. Like the parts are memorized. I know them, and I'm always ahead of the rest of the guys, which is a good thing.
That's a good thing, because I was thinking you should have done a periphery version of James Brown with 2 drummers. So when you're lazy, you can subdivide some parts. And
that'd be really cool, man.
If you're bad, they will charge you. I think it was $10 per mistakes, and if not, at night you go back to the studio. James Brown was a tough cookie anyway.
He was, yeah. I wouldn't want to piss him off.
Hey man, the time is over. Thanks a lot. Actually, you're a good person. Stay like that, my friend. We like people like you, like honest, giving good cues. You had such pretty cool. Thanks for accepting to be on the channel.
Of course.
And, I hope we can keep in touch. I mean, I will be back normality in a few months, I guess, with that COVID. So if we reality come back, should be cool to hang. And I would like to re-invite you one day because we didn't have much time, but I will do capsules in the channel, and I would like to maybe go hang and just you can shot some recording of when you record a song or something. So I've been to Baltimore 2-3 times, and I know I like this area too. So I could just stop and say, can you record some shot for the channel?
Yeah, anytime, man. Just let me know.
Hey, stay safe. Good luck. And where the people can see your new stuff coming out? Is it better on your personal page, or is it on the periphery page? Where's the best access to it?
Probably my Instagram is the best place to go, and it's just instagram.com/mattperiphery. That's it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, man, stay safe. Have a good night, and we'll keep in touch, my friend.
Okay. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Cool. Sorry. Good news, bad news. We had technical issues tonight. Paul Bostaph won't be there tonight. It won't happen. There's some technical issues, and he's not with the platform. He's on his side. So I will try to re-invite him in the season 2. I just got the message. I'm sorry for that. If you were waiting for him, it's going to be for another season. He's not on my side. I want to say just a few things. Tonight was the last show of the first season. I had 71 guests in 4 months. It's a lot. Next season is going to be less people, like 2 in the French version and 2 or 3 in the English version. So in the world edition. So it's going to be like right now. Every Tuesday will be the French, and every Wednesday will be the English version. The show actually starting in 2 weeks. We're going to have the capsules launching every Tuesday. So I wish you can check it out. Go like the Facebook of Drumfield Cafe, the Instagram, and the YouTube. The best place right now for learn everything, contest, like giveaway, whatever, it's on the Facebook. And if you have any suggestion, it's time to do it. This summer will be a creation time for the channel. So you can always write to us at drumfieldcafe@gmail.com, or you can go on the Facebook on Drumfield Cafe, and somebody will answer you for sure. So, well, thank you very much. My name is Eric Boudreau. Thank you for having been there for the first season. That have been quite a challenge. I'm super happy. It was a success, and all the guests have been super nice with me. So, take care, stay safe, and we will see you soon, actually, soon in September. So take care. Have a good night.